Welcome to Chinese Novel Audiobook. Chapter 81 2 verses. 1. The Orc Disaster Lord looked at the giant ice giant in front of him with a somewhat puzzled expression, wondering when such a monster had appeared in the Jura forest. The magical aura of this ice giant was comparable to his own, and with that red-robed ogre on top, they faintly suppressed the Orc Disaster Lord. You should know that the Orc Disaster Lord had just reached the level of a demon lord after devouring a large number of souls and monsters, while the Ice Guardian. Orc Disaster Lord, the murderer who destroyed my village, let's settle things between us today. Benimaru's icy voice rang out at this moment, but no expression could be seen on his face. HMPH. The weak are prey to the strong, that is the rule of this world. The Orc Disaster Lord snorted disdainfully, expressionless, and the aura on his body began to rise, obviously preparing to gather strength. This opportunity was given to me by my master after much pleading, for the sake of avenging the blood feud of my clan. Benimaru's terrifying magic began to circulate, his red robe began to move without wind, one eye emitted black flames like karmic fire, and the other eye burst out with white eerie flames like a hellish abyss. This was Benimaru at full power, his eyes bursting with different colored flames, and in an instant, Benimaru's body disappeared from the spot. Bang! The Orc Disaster Lord's reaction was not slow either, using his palm to block a slash wrapped in black flames. However, these black flames were very strange, beginning to adhere to the Orc Disaster Lord's arm and continuously burn. All the actions happened in a flash, and Benimaru's figure appeared in front of the Orc Disaster Lord. Firmly holding a long sword wrapped in black flames, he clashed with the Orc Disaster Lord, and the huge power even caused the ground to sink a bit. Orc Disaster Lord, let me show you the tip of the iceberg of my lord's power. Benimaru's voice rang in the Orc Disaster Lord's ear, seemingly with a hint of mockery. Kid, don't talk big. Then the Orc Disaster Lord's pupils suddenly shrank, and he felt a sense of crisis. It was from the red-haired ogre in front of him. Boom. Open black lens bracket black flame hell close black lens bracket. A huge purple-black flame soared into the sky, sweeping out with rolling heat. After the flames dissipated, only a bare ground was left, and the Orc Disaster Lord, whose body was emitting scorched smoke. Is this the taste of pain? It's been so long. The Orc Disaster Lord looked at his charred body, and a flash of green light flashed, and it returned to its original state. This is the open black lens bracket self-regeneration close black lens bracket skill. Benimaru's figure landed on the ground not far from the Orc Disaster Lord, looking at the Orc Disaster Lord who was still unscathed after his skill damage. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. The gap between his strength and that of a demon lord was still quite large, but he hadn't truly used Great Rimuru's power yet. Suddenly, the Orc Disaster Lord clenched his fist and directly rushed towards Benimaru, who was still stunned in place, and punched him in the abdomen. Bang! Benimaru only had time to hold his weapon horizontally in front of his chest, and the terrifying force struck. His body directly smashed down several trees, flying far away before stopping. The Orc Disaster Lord was even more puzzled, because his strength was mainly reflected in his physical power, but the punch just now didn't seem to cause any damage to this red-haired ogre. Kid, you seem to have some kind of guardian skill on you. Benimaru slowly walked over from a distance, and patted the dust on his clothes. His tone was indifferent. Forgot to tell you, it's 2 against 1 now. As soon as Benimaru's voice fell, shoo! An ice rock fist as big as the Orc Disaster Lord's body directly landed on the Orc Disaster Lord's body. And the two figures who had been watching the battle in the high sky had been paying attention to the process of the battle. Huff, I thought Benimaru was going to be seriously injured just now. Rimuru looked at the scene where Benimaru was punched away by the Orc Disaster Lord just now with lingering fear. Aren't you not worried about Benimaru and the others at all, but you agreed to Benimaru's request, what if? Great Rimuru shook his head when he heard this and turned to look at Rimuru. I know it's a bit dangerous to let Benimaru fight the Orc Disaster Lord, but Benimaru's idea of wanting to avenge himself also makes me very tangled. Besides, this battle, whether it's a win or a loss, is a kind of growth for Benimaru. And didn't I let the Ice Guardian go to help? With the Ice Guardian's guardian skills, Benimaru will not be in danger of his life. Rimuru nodded thoughtfully after hearing Great Rimuru's explanation. Great Rimuru, are you so optimistic about Benimaru? You actually have such high expectations for this subordinate. Yeah, that's right. Although Benimaru is a bit impulsive during battles, his military talent is definitely a general level talent, and with such a powerful strength, it's even more perfect. Great Rimuru was thinking about handing over the important task of military combat and military affairs to Benimaru after the founding of the country in the future so that he could rest assured and then hide in the castle to sleep. This was obviously Great Rimuru's true inner thoughts, and he had already begun to arrange his future life of touching fish. Haha, looking at Rimuru, who still looked unaware, Great Rimuru thought secretly in his heart. Rimuru, just be your meeting demon lord, with peace of mind, I have arranged everything. Rimuru didn't expect the cunning Great Rimuru to have already set his sights on the future. Great Rimuru, it's starting to be 2 against 1. Great Rimuru's gaze turned downwards, and he saw that the Ice Guardian had begun to make a move. Open black lens bracket frozen fist close black lens bracket. Boom. The huge fist landed on the Orc Disaster Lord's body. Even the Orc Disaster Lord's terrifying brute force could not resist the power of this punch. This time, it was the Orc Disaster Lord's figure that began to fly out, covered in ice shards. Benimaru didn't let go of such a good opportunity to attack, and pinched out a ball of ice flames and threw it towards the Orc Disaster Lord's body. Open black lens bracket ice burst flame close black lens bracket. Boom. Blue and white flames swept out, bringing a terrifying ice burst power, and the surrounding area instantly turned into an ice world. Ice shards danced wildly in the sky, turning into a scene of an ice and snowstorm. The Orc Disaster Lord directly spat out a mouthful of blood, and ice crystals pierced into his body, and the terrifying destructive power swept into his body. Everything was frozen wherever it passed, and the Orc Disaster Lord felt his soul begin to falter. Even the soul can be frozen. The Orc Disaster Lord looked at the red-robed figure in front of him, and then looked at the ice giant. However, you underestimate me too much. Let me show you what the hungry ghost hell is. Devour everything for me. The Orc Disaster Lord's evil devouring power began to devour everything around him, even magic and skills. A devouring power began to head towards Benimaru's position, as if to devour his entire person. Lord Benimaru, be careful. Chapter 82 Crummet. The Ice Guardian's warning sounded, and at the same time, a circle of ice blue light lit up around Benimaru's body. A layer of ice armor appeared and shattered immediately upon being eroded by the power of Devour. Taking advantage of this gap, Benimaru, having reacted, immediately moved closer to the Ice Guardian. Ice Guardian, thank you for your protective skill. Haha, Benimaru, you need to be careful. This pig lord has skills similar to Lord Rimuru. Benimaru nodded solemnly. If it was a skill similar to Lord Rimuru's, it would be troublesome. After all, the skill to devour everything and turn it into one's own power is indeed very buggy. The pig lord looked at the ice giant with a grim face. He still didn't understand what the ice giant's skills were, only knowing that he could go head to head with him because of his super high defense. Then, the pig lord turned his gaze to Benimaru, gathering a dark black magic ball in his hand and throwing it at Benimaru. But, a huge palm directly appeared in front of Benimaru, blocking the magic ball. Boom. With me, the Ice Guardian, here, don't even think about harming Lord Benimaru. Pig Lord. Okay. 2 against 1, and you're still playing like this. The Ice Guardian can be said to be a competent meat shield. All of the Pig Lord's skills and attacks are useless against this ice giant. Such terrifying defense is simply infuriating. What's even more shameless is that red-haired Oni simply hid behind the Ice Guardian and threw big moves. All the Pig Lord soldiers in this area, except for the Pig Lord, were physically liberated. Seeing that his skills were useless against the Ice Guardian, the Pig Lord stopped attacking, and an evil aura emanated. He directly used his devouring power, and the dark black aura covered the sky and the earth, intending to directly devour the 2 people in front of him. But, Ice Prison. 3 layers of magic circle arrays rose up under the Pig Lord's feet. Terrifying magic power condensed, and in the Pig Lord's dumbfounded gaze, ice chains wrapped around his entire body. Immediately afterwards, Ice Fist Black Flame Hell Ice Flame Explosion. It can be said that the tradition of gang warfare was brought into full play. In a hidden forest, a demon wearing a white dress coat and hat, and a crow mask, looked just like a plague doctor. This was none other than Clayman. He was looking at the crystal ball in his hand with a grim face, the picture on which was the perspective of the Pig Lord he controlled. My Pig Lord is actually being suppressed, how is this possible? How is this possible? His voice became hoarse. Clayman opened his mouth, his face full of disbelief. It should be known that this is a Pig Lord with the strength of a Demon Lord seed, and he is actually being beaten down by the combination of these 2 people. The most dumbfounding thing is that the Pig Lord's attack has no effect on that ice giant. What kind of monster is this? Where did these two guys come from? One of them is even an Oni. That's right, Oni, could it be? Just as Clayman was in a daze, the picture on the crystal began to show the tragic state of the Pig Lord army. Bastards, a bunch of useless pig-headed trash, how are these Oni so powerful? Clayman saw the picture transmitted from the Pig Lord soldiers' eyes. Hundreds of thousands of Pig Lord soldiers were like paper, being slaughtered by a few goblins and a few Oni. He immediately shouted angrily. It should be known that the armor of these 200,000 Pig Lord soldiers consumed a lot of their efforts and money. Could it be that these Oni are the survivors of the previous attack on the ogre village? Everywhere has become an ice hell, how could anyone still be alive? Clayman couldn't figure out where these powerful Oni came from, and it had already disrupted his plan. What's worse is that he can't contact Laplace and Tyr at all. Clayman is a little anxious now, pacing back and forth in place. Something must have happened in a place I don't know about. Suddenly, Clayman's body trembled, as if he had thought of something terrible. Damn it, I have to find a way no matter what, otherwise the plan that I finally got to this point will be ruined. Clayman's figure soared into the sky, rushing anxiously in one direction. His face began to become panicked, and drops of sweat appeared on his head. He kept muttering in his mouth. If this continues, I will definitely be killed by that lord. In the dim lizardman dungeon. A lizardman was staying in a cell with a displeased expression, his eyes revealing a trace of stubbornness. Lord Gabaru, there hasn't been any movement outside. A lizardman follower said cautiously to Gabaru. HMPH. How would I know? If I were to lead the lizardman race, I would have already killed the mere pig lord race and sent them fleeing in panic. Gabiru's expression was still so arrogant, young and vigorous, as if he didn't see everything in his eyes. That's right, Lord Gabaru is the most powerful, the mere pig lord is just a paper tiger. The lizardman follower quickly echoed. Gabaru looked smug whenever he heard the flattery of his subordinates. Alas, but father has locked me up here, and I can't even go out to kill the enemy. Then, Gabaru sighed. The lizardmen who were locked up together lowered their heads with a look of loss. It was indeed a shame for them as warriors not to be able to go out and kill the enemy at a time when the tribe was in danger. The scene became quiet. A lizardman raised his head and said with doubt. Have those guards come back? Could it be that the Pig Lord army has been defeated? At this time, a sinister voice sounded, making people unconsciously get goosebumps. My child, why are you locked up here? It really disappoints me as a father. Hee. Hearing this familiar voice, Gabaru suddenly raised his head and looked at the dim passage. A demon wearing a birdman mask walked slowly, holding a strange cane, looked around, and finally looked at Gabaru. You, Lord Clayman, I didn't expect you to be here, could it be, are you here to rescue me? Gabiru's surprised voice sounded. Hee, Gabaru, do I remember the mission I gave you? A barely perceptible cold light flashed in Clayman's eyes, and he tightened his grip on the cane in his hand. Lord Clayman, I have disappointed you. Gabaru lowered his head in shame. Clayman restrained his emotions and came to Gabiru's side. Gabaru, I have an opportunity. I will let you out, you just need to follow me. Really? Then can you let my companions out too? I will definitely kill all those Pig Lord soldiers to prove myself. Clayman nodded with a chuckle, suppressing the urge to kill this waste immediately. This can be fed to the nourishment of his greatest masterpiece, and cannot be wasted like this. Chapter 83, Soul Severely Injured. Thank you, great crewmate, I knew you cared about me. Gavel was filled with emotion, knowing that he was now imprisoned by his own father and could be said to have been abandoned by the entire clan. Even though he hadn't completed the task given to him by the Great One, he still came to the dungeon to save him. How highly he must regard Gavel. Anyway, Gavel was thinking this foolishly. Even if the clan abandoned him, as long as crewmate didn't abandon him. In the original story, even the Lizardman chief couldn't protect Gavel just because he was his son. Otherwise, how could he lead the clan? Gavel's fate was to be expelled from the clan. Crewmate impatiently waved his hand and helped Gavel open the shackles on his body. Hurry and come with me. My companions. Gavel was dumbfounded. Wasn't it agreed that he and his companions would be released together? I want to share this with my clansmen. Crewmate directly covered Gavel's mouth. He didn't pay attention to Gavel's request, knowing that there were still two powerful Kijin in the Lizardman dungeon. If he really released these thousands of Lizardman soldiers, it would definitely alarm everyone in the dungeon, and it would be difficult to get out at that time. Go. Great crewmate. Crewmate was in no mood to waste time here. He needed to quickly take this good-for-nothing to the battlefield where the Pig Lord was. A shattered battlefield. Boom, boom. Benimaru's robes danced wildly, his handsome face expressionless, as he threw ice flame and black flame at the Pig Lord with each hand. A warrior who was originally a close-quarters fighter had forcibly become an explosively powerful mage. Ice flame burst. Black flame prison. Explosive waves of blue and black continuously echoed in this open space, and the entire ground was plowed over and over again. The Pig Lord was now experiencing what it meant to be in both fire and ice. The terrifying black flames burned his skin, and the power of the ice blast rampaged through his body. What the Pig Lord feared most was the chill that could freeze the soul. At this moment, his fiendish soul was fighting against the invading chill, relying on the power of Devour to wear it down. In front of the Pig Lord, an ice giant was smashing down with its ice fist. HMPH. The Pig Lord laboriously blocked the ice giant's fist with both arms, while also guarding against the red-haired Kijin, because a sword wrapped in black flames would appear from time to time. Even the damage from the ice blast and black flames was ignored by him, as the power of Devour swept over and turned all these skills into his own power. A voice of world will sounded in the Pig Lord's mind. Gained cold resistance, flame resistance. At this time, the Pig Lord sneered at Benimaru, who suddenly appeared behind him. Hey, kid, if you want revenge, this little bit of power of yours isn't enough. Your ice blast and flames are already ineffective against me. If it weren't for this big guy, I would have eaten you long ago. Although the Pig Lord hated Benimaru, who would occasionally appear by his side to deliver a blow, he couldn't wait to tear this kid to pieces. But once he tried to attack this red-haired Kijin, a strange force would pull him to land his attack on the ice giant. What strange ability is this? The Pig Lord looked at the motionless ice giant in front of him with a dark expression. Especially when he saw the ice giant grin at him, it was just like mockery. Benimaru didn't care about the Pig Lord's taunts, but calmly drew his long sword from behind the Pig Lord. Pig Lord, since skills can't do any damage to you, then what about this attack? An ice-blue magic power was wrapped around the sword, and a chilling, bone-piercing coldness emanated, followed by a lock of killing intent. The Pig Lord instantly felt a sense of crisis, and his heart couldn't help but become alert, looking at this kid he hadn't cared about. Benimaru held the sword horizontally in front of his chest, gently stroking the sword with one hand, and murmured in his mouth. Great Grandsta, I will not fail your expectations. When the voice fell, the entire sword was already covered with ice-blue lines, as if it had activated the magic runes engraved on it. Ice severance. An ice-blue light flashed from the Pig Lord's body, and ice thorns emerged from the ground where it passed. The Pig Lord's eyes immediately turned white, and he stood there blankly. This attack clearly landed on the Pig Lord's body, but it didn't cause a single wound. Excruciating pain, extremely terrifying pain, filled the Pig Lord's brain. This was a tearing sensation from the soul. At this moment, the Pig Lord's soul was directly divided into two halves, and the power of severance filled his mind, constantly destroying the Pig Lord's soul. Rimuru looked at the Pig Lord, who was already blankly stunned in place, with a shocked expression. Grandsta, isn't this the skill you used to kill that flame giant? Yes. Grandsta nodded. Benimaru's weapon was specially made by Kurobe, but it cost him a lot of A-grade materials. Do you think Benimaru's attack can kill the Pig Lord? Rimuru curiously looked at the Pig Lord, whose eyes were already white. Grandsta slightly shook his head. If I were to use this attack, the Pig Lord's soul wouldn't even have ashes left. But with Benimaru's magic power, now the Pig Lord can only be considered to have a severely injured soul. It's still a bit difficult for Benimaru to successfully kill him. Rimuru immediately turned to look at Grandsta. According to what you're saying, you can easily kill the Pig Lord. Yes, you could say that. Rimuru. But at this moment, the Overlord prompt sounded in Grandsta's mind. Great Grandsta, there are two unknown magical auras approaching. Oh. Grandsta dispersed his magical perception. Sure enough, in the distance, a Majin dressed as a bird doctor was carrying a lizardman in his hand and flying over. Rimuru's great sage also spoke up at this time to remind him, but the reaction was still a little slower than the Overlord. Rimuru looked up and also saw a Majin flying from a distance, seemingly carrying something in his hand. And this bird-beaked Majin didn't seem to have noticed Grandsta and the others, and flew into the battlefield so brazenly. Hey, so it's him. The corners of Grandsta's mouth curled into a cold smile. It seemed that things were going to develop according to the original plot. He had already warned Laplace. But this Majin actually dared to appear in front of him. A trace of killing intent flashed in Grandsta's eyes. Chapter 84 Evolution. Pig-headed Demon King. This bird-man doctor, this Majin, wasn't he Krumit? He looked incredibly anxious. Ahem, Lord Krumit, where are you taking me? Krumit ignored Gavel's complaints and landed directly beside the Pighead Emperor. Looking at the Pighead Emperor with his eyes glazed over and a blank stare, he was filled with disbelief. He could feel his control over the Pighead Emperor slowly weakening. Then, Krumit's expression turned furious, his eyes bloodshot, and he pointed his staff at Benimaru and the Ice Guardians. You lowly monsters, how dare you harm the greatest masterpiece that Lord bestowed upon me? Unforgivable, utterly unforgivable. His voice was incredibly shrill. The Ice Guardian looked at the suddenly crazed Majin before him, his face unchanged, but he clenched his massive fist. It was as if he were saying, if you don't get lost, I'll beat you up too. Benimaru, on the other hand, looked surprised at the sudden appearance of this Majin, but when he heard that the Pighead Emperor was this person's masterpiece, the killing intent in his heart almost materialized. You say this Pighead Emperor is your masterpiece. You're the Majin hiding behind the scenes that Granstar was talking about. What? Lord Krumit, you. Gavel looked at the Krumit he had always respected with disbelief. How could he be the Majin behind the Pighead Emperor? Krumit laughed wildly, no longer caring about anything. Haha, so what if I am? Do you know what the consequences are for offending that lord? And you useless trash. If it weren't for you, my Pighead Emperor would have devoured countless souls by now. The deranged Krumit kicked the disbelieving Gavel to the ground. Then, Krumit laughed and raised that strange staff weapon, aiming it at Benimaru. I am a high-ranking Majin under Lord's command. I'll show you the power of a high-ranking Majin. Curse word spirit. Several red magic circles lit up directly behind Krumit, and clusters of dark red magic bullets condensed. You dare to ruin my plan, go to hell. Oni. Krumit was just about to release the skill towards Benimaru, but strangely, he aimed the skill at the ice giant. How is this possible? At this moment, Krumit's face was filled with bewilderment. Boom! A series of dark red magic bullets struck the Ice Guardian. But the Ice Guardian's body was completely unharmed, and he even grinned mockingly. High-ranking Majin. Is that all there is to it? Benimaru also crossed his arms, a look of mockery on his face, as he looked at Krumit's twisted face. You. Krumit's eyes kept flashing red, and the anger in his heart was unimaginable. Suddenly, whoosh! Benimaru's body disappeared from the spot and appeared beside Krumit, his eyes revealing a cold killing intent. A long sword wrapped in black flames slashed towards Krumit's body. Ah! A shrill scream rang out, and Krumit painfully clutched his shoulder, blood seeping through his fingers. An arm fell to the ground at the same time, and in a moment, it was burned to ashes by the black flames, leaving behind a pile of dust. Your strength, how is this possible? You're just low-level monsters. Krumit was so frightened by the strength Benimaru displayed that he retreated again and again, arriving in front of the Pighead Emperor's body, looking at Benimaru, whose eyes were cold and slowly approaching him. Fear swept over him, and Krumit trembled. He couldn't die in this place. That's right, I still have the Pighead Emperor. If the Pighead Emperor successfully evolves into a demon lord, you will all die. Krumit quickly used the control magic that Lord had taught him, trying to control the Pighead Emperor. And the Pighead Emperor's body, with its glazed eyes and blank stare, actually moved slightly, blocking in front of Krumit. Benimaru's eyes narrowed, and he looked at the Pighead Emperor blocking in front of him with a grim expression. Seeing this, Krumit laughed triumphantly again, pointing at Benimaru and the others. Haha, now I'll show you what Demon Lord level strength is. His eyes looked towards Gavel, who was lying on the ground with a blank stare, and Krumit revealed a cruel expression. Pighead Emperor, go. Devour this nourishment that I specially prepared for you. Haha, let's witness the birth of the Pighead Emperor here. Gavel's eyes were completely filled with despair. Only now did he realize how ridiculous he was. My dear son, you should feel honored to still have a bit of value. Gavel looked at the Krumit he had once respected so much with despair, his mouth trembling. Lord Krumit, you've been lying to me all along. Benimaru looked at this scene nervously. Could the Pighead Emperor really evolve into a demon lord? And in the high sky, Rimuru was looking anxious. Granstar, is the Pighead Emperor really going to evolve into a Pighead Demon Lord? How did you know in advance? Before the battle, Granstar had told him that he would face the Pighead Emperor after he became a Demon Lord. Now it was really going to be as Granstar said. Granstar looked at Rimuru with a calm expression. That's a secret. Rimuru, it's almost your turn to appear. Okay, leave it to me. Rimuru waved his small fist confidently. Since Granstar didn't want to say, then forget it. It would be his turn to show his power later. Granstar turned his gaze to the bottom again. In the arena, under Krumit's control, the pig-head emperor slowly walked towards Gavel's position. A hint of coldness flashed in Granstar's eyes. Overlord, is there a way to interfere with Krumit's control over the pig-head emperor? Granstar directly inquired the Overlord. Lord Granstar, it can be done. Receiving the confirmed information from the Overlord, a cold smile appeared on Granstar's lips. Then start interfering. It's best to. Received. Starting to interfere with Krumit's control magic. Interference successful. In the arena, the pig-head emperor, who was slowly walking towards Gavel, paused. Pig-head emperor, what are you waiting for? Quickly devour that lizard man in front of you. Gavel closed his eyes in despair upon hearing the cold words from Lord Krumit, who had named him. But at this moment, an unexpected change occurred. The pig-head emperor's body actually turned towards Krumit, and one hand directly grabbed Krumit. Even Benimaru was stunned by this change. Pig-head emperor, what are you doing? I am your master. Krumit, who was grabbed in his hand, looked at the pig-head emperor with disbelief. But at this moment, the pig-head emperor actually sent Krumit directly into his mouth and began to chew. Ah! The arena suddenly became incomparably bloody. A voice of the worlds will resounded in the pig-head emperor's mind. Individual name, Krumit, fulfilling the conditions for advancing to Demon Lord. Select whether to evolve. An incomparably trembling aura of magic power emanated from the pig-head emperor's body, and even the damaged soul began to repair itself. Chapter 85, Gang Up. This terrifying wave directly swept across the battlefield. Everyone could feel this aura, even Hikuro and Sue in the underground palace. This is bad, this aura. A large number of lizard soldiers followed the two Kijin out of the underground palace, rushing towards where Benimaru and the others were. Benimaru, what exactly happened here? Hikuro arrived beside Benimaru, looking solemnly at the evolving pig lord. Hikuro Dono, the pig lord is likely evolving into a demon lord. Benimaru explained briefly. Sue, who came with him, and the Dragonute woman, including Xian who arrived later, couldn't help but shrink their pupils upon hearing Benimaru's explanation. A demon lord. How is that possible? The name, Demon Lord, was synonymous with terror for the natives, and the enemy before them was about to become such an existence. A massive dark shadow enveloped the pig lord, and from the outside, it could be seen that the pig lord's figure was constantly growing taller. Gu Lanster calmly watched the pig lord's evolution. Even if the pig lord became a demon lord now, he would be the weakest of the demon lords, not dangerous enough for him at the moment. Overlord, if I were to plunder the pig lords, starving one, would it improve me at all right now? Gu Lanster asked this question because he wanted to know if he should plunder the starving one. Master Gu Lanster, I advise against plundering. Firstly, the compatibility between starving one and plunderer is less than 20%, making fusion impossible. Secondly, starving one will produce serious side effects. Gu Lanster pondered slightly upon hearing the Overlord analysis. Indeed, this skill is like garbage to me. Then it can only be given to Rimuru, the person chosen by fate. Rimuru's cheat is like something he picked up. Predator and starving one definitely have high compatibility. Gu Lanster watched Rimuru with an eager expression, probably impatient after watching his subordinates display their skills. Gu Lanster, the pig lord is about to complete his evolution. We can't let him go unchecked. If we don't kill him now, it might really turn into a disaster. Below, the black mist on the pig lord's body gradually dissipated, revealing his brand new body. His entire body was over 10 meters tall, and black thorns grew out of his back. I am called Carrion, Demon Lord Carrion. The huge sound waves came from the pig lord's mouth, and the stones on the ground moved slightly. However, one hot-tempered individual couldn't sit still. The purple, voluptuous figure was wild and unrestrained. You stinky pig head, a demon lord. Keep dreaming. Xian, don't. The calm Benimaru wanted to warn her, but it was too late. Xian's figure had already rushed in front of the pig lord. Wielding a great sword taller than herself, she gathered momentum for a slash at the pig lord. Eat my blade first. The pig lord saw a purple-haired brat come before him and gently raised a hand. Bang! The sword hummed softly, sparks flew, and the pig lord blocked Xian's fully charged strike with just one palm. Xian's eyes were filled with disbelief, but the force of the rebound made her hands slightly numb. Come back quickly, be careful of the Pig Lord's attack. Benimaru's anxious voice came over. What? Xian turned her head to look at Benimaru, and a huge shadow loomed over her. By the time she reacted, it was too late. The Pig Lord's fist directly smashed down. Boom! Xian spat out blood, and her body was directly smashed away, making intimate contact with the ground dozens of meters away. Xian. 3. Things happened too suddenly, and even the hero guards standing behind her didn't have time to release their skills. Before evolving, the Pig Lord could already contend with him based on physical strength alone, let alone the Pig Lord who had become a demon lord. Benimaru quickly helped Xian up from the ground. Blood gushed out, but fortunately, only a few bones were broken. He took out a ball of blue recovery potion and crushed it. Xian's severely injured body began to recover. The hero guards simultaneously released a circle of blue halo, and the visible recovery speed became a little faster, and the pain on her face also weakened a bit. Benimaru turned his head to look at the Pig Lord, and angry black flames immediately burst out in his eyes. You bastard! The 6 of them were the only remaining ogres saved by Jiu Lanster-sama, and they had long been as close as intimate partners. After handing Xian over to the hero guards, he stood up, each hand conjuring a different colored flame. Hikuro's figure flashed and came to the side of the enraged Benimaru. Let this old man try first. Then he slowly drew out his thin sword, his figure like a white ghost, making it impossible for people to capture him. A white, sharp sword light flashed. Hikuro's figure appeared behind the Pig Lord, completing his deadly strike in an instant. Blood oozed from the Pig Lord's neck, and his head actually fell directly to the ground, separated from his body with a single slash. Benimaru's expression was the same as everyone else's, stunned for a long time, muttering in his mouth. Was that successful? Even Xian, this violent woman, couldn't break the Pig Lord's defense, yet Hikuro decapitated him with a single slash. The light in Hikuro's eyes flashed. In his perception, the Pig Lord's life force had not weakened. That's not right. Sensing danger, Hikuro put away his thin sword, choosing to move away from this position. Sure enough, everyone became highly vigilant. The Pig Lord's body, having lost its head, could still move, and even picked up the head that had fallen on the ground. At the severed part of the neck, countless yellow, viscous tentacles appeared, and after sticking together with the head, it was actually repaired. Benimaru's eyes widened, and he was shocked by this scene again. What kind of heaven-defying recovery power is this? Hikuro, on the other hand, raised a strange eye on his forehead, carefully observing the Pig Lord's movements. This is self-regeneration plus recovery magic, and a strange soul power. The Pig Lord, who had reattached his neck, grinned and moved his neck. I am the Pig-head Demon Lord, and I will devour everyone in front of me. Just as the Pig Lord was about to take action, strands of silk emerged from under his feet, starting to wrap around him. These silk threads had tiny ice thorns on them, and the ice thorns were attached with ice poison, which had the effect of paralyzing nerves. The Pig Lord's body was directly wrapped into a cocoon. Ice thorn binding prison formation. And Sue on the side was struggling to tighten a few control threads. Benimaru, hurry! Seeing that Sue had controlled the Pig Lord, Benimaru hurriedly shouted, and the 2 colored strange flames in his hands were thrown out at the same time. Let's go together. The Dragonut's golden armor had already been draped over her body, and she clenched her fists. I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 86 Appearance. The Dragonut vibrated his dragon wings behind him, his golden hair danced wildly, appearing exceptionally unruly against the backdrop of his golden armor. Golden flames enveloped his entire body, and the golden flames on the golden whirlwind spear surged forth. Dragon flame burst. 12 incredibly powerful golden fireballs descended towards the Pig Lord, their explosive might soaring into the sky. At that moment, the 2 ultimate moves that Benimaru launched arrived before the Pig Lord simultaneously. Boom! Boom! Dust billowed, and the ground where the Pig Lord stood caved in. Is the Pig Lord dead? Everyone's gaze involuntarily fell upon me at the epicenter of the explosion, where Yu's magical power had reached a terrifying level. White Elder remained serious, staring ahead, the celestial eye on his forehead constantly active. Ah! A painful roar echoed from the smoke and dust, and everyone's expression changed. Even a full-force strike from the assembled group couldn't kill the Pig Lord. Do you know how much this hurts? The Pig Lord's bloodshot eyes lit up in the smoke and dust. When it completely dissipated, his entire body was covered in charred scars. White Elder reacted a bit faster, suddenly reminding everyone. Be careful, the Pig Lord is going to attack. The Pig Lord condensed a highly compressed dark red magic bullet in his hand, a skill he had obtained from devouring crewmate. Dance of the Dead. Clusters of dark red magic bullets flew rapidly into the sky, hovering above Benimaru and the others, instantly transforming into a dense rain of light beams falling down. Leave these attacks to me. A rumbling sound came from behind everyone. Ice Guardian stepped forward at this moment, standing in front of everyone, his massive body giving a great sense of security. Guardian Barrier. A blue barrier of light spread out from Ice Guardian's body, enveloping Benimaru and the Dragonute woman. These dark purple beams of light landed on the barrier, creating layers of ripples, but the barrier remained motionless under the Pig Lord's continuous attack. Seeing Ice Guardian so easily block the Pig Lord's attack, a smile appeared on Benimaru's lips. Haha, Ice Guardian, you're really something. Ice Guardian, with his straightforward personality, scratched his head, a wide grin splitting his face. White Elder stroked his beard, chuckled, and looked at Ice Guardian in front of him. As expected of Lord Gransta's #1 subordinate, even the Pig Lord can't do anything to your turtle shell. The Dragonute's expression was also wonderful. This big guy in front of them could actually block the Pig Lord's attack so easily. Just how many more strong allies did they have? Benimaru and the others were happy, but the Pig Lord's face darkened. He originally thought he was invincible after evolving into a demon lord, but he was being made so miserable by some little brats. Seeing that his attacks couldn't do anything to this turtle shell, the Pig Lord turned his gaze to Ice Guardian. Seeing this, Ice Guardian also looked back without any politeness, saying with a serious face. I can't let you hurt Lord Benimaru and the others. I promised, Master. The tone and the meaning he wanted to express were so straightforward. The Pig Lord was filled with anger. He had just been ganged up on by these little devils, and his head had been chopped off once. When it was his turn to counterattack, this annoying guy came out to stop him. The Pig Lord could see that this ice giant, besides having great strength, was strongest in his defense and his ability to protect his teammates. This wasn't even the most disgusting thing for the Pig Lord. This ice giant also seemed to have the ability to attract hatred. This was the most frustrating thing, as all his output was going into the tank. The scene fell silent. The two sides fell into a stalemate, and at this time, two humanoid figures fell from the sky, both with blue glowing hair, one slender and the other a boy. The Pig Lord's heart was immediately filled with a great sense of vigilance. The appearance of these two people brought him a strong premonition of danger, but he didn't know which one of them it was. They descended from the sky, and their voices also came out. Yay, is it finally my turn to play this time? When Benimaru and the others saw these two figures, a look of surprise flashed in their eyes, as if they had found their backbone. Lord Grandsta, Lord Rimuru. Grandsta saw that they were all more or less injured. However, from their eyes, he could see that this fierce battle had given them a clear understanding of their rapidly increasing strength. Grandsta came to Benimaru's side and gently patted his shoulder. Benimaru, you did well this time. Benimaru knew that Grandsta was not praising his battle with the Pig Lord, but his excellent command of the Goblin Cavalry in the rear to kill the enemy. However, because of this, he had requested to hand over the command to Zulai, who was supposed to be the military commander, and had come to fight the Pig Lord. If Grandsta hadn't sent Ice Guardian with him, he would have. Thinking of this, Benimaru lowered his head in shame. Lord Grandsta, I was too confident in my increased strength. Not only did I fail to fulfill my duty as commander, but I also caused Xian to be seriously injured. Xian, who had already recovered, heard that Benimaru was going to take all the responsibility on himself, and ran over to defend him. Lord Grandsta, my matter is not Benimaru's fault. It's all my fault for being too reckless, so it's not Benimaru's fault. Grandsta was stunned by these two. He just wanted to praise Benimaru's strength, but he didn't expect them to think so much. Shaking his head helplessly, Grandsta touched Xian's head. It was said that people with big breasts and no brains were the most terrible, but there was no one as silly as Xian. You still know you're reckless. You knew the enemy was a demon lord, and you still charged forward. Xian stuck out her tongue playfully when she saw that Lord Grandsta wasn't angry. However, when she saw Rimuru beside Lord Grandsta, her eyes lit up. Lord Rimuru, you're here too. Rimuru involuntarily took a small step back, but was violently embraced by Xian, and could only smile awkwardly. Ah, Xian, is your injury healed yet? As my secretary, I'm very worried about you. Rimuru began to lie with his eyes open. Xian was even happier when she heard this, and hugged Rimuru's arm even harder. Lord Rimuru, I knew you were the cutest. Ah, cough cough. Rimuru felt that Xian was using too much strength. He was about to be squeezed back into slime form, and could only look at Grandsta with pleading eyes. Seeing them so intimate, Grandsta directly ignored Rimuru's pleading gaze and began to do ideological work on Benimaru. Cough cough, Benimaru, don't overthink this time. I recognize your strength and talent, but remember to never leave the battlefield during the command process. You must know that this is a taboo as a commander. Yes. Grandsta looked at Benimaru in front of him with satisfaction. This was his most trusted subordinate, talented and strong. Chapter 87 Final Battle. Hong Maru's body stiffened upon hearing Lord Grandsta's words of comfort. His eyes brightened a bit. Grandsta also sensed a slight change in Hong Maru and was at a loss, wondering what was happening. The Overlord reminder sounded. Lord Grandsta, your subordinate Hong Maru has just comprehended the skill open black lens bracket Grand Marshal close black lens bracket. Grandsta looked surprised and couldn't help but take a few more glances at Hong Maru. This works too. Hong Maru looked at Lord Grandsta's surprised gaze and became even more respectful of his lord. I didn't expect to be discovered by the lord already. I must thank the lord for his comforting words. Grandsta didn't want to say anything anymore. This world was truly absurd. Skills could be comprehended suddenly. Was it influenced by Rimuru, that cheat-like existence, constantly radiating cheats to the surroundings? Even Hong Maru was starting to learn from Rimuru. Poor him, he could only rely on the open black lens bracket plunder or close black lens bracket ability to steal skills and then fuse powerful skills through open black lens bracket mutator close black lens bracket. Just as Grandsta was in a daze, the remaining goblin army also arrived. Instantly, the two sides confronted each other, centered around the Goblin Emperor. Grandsta sized up the number of opponents with interest. The total number of goblin soldiers was now around 120,000, which was less than the number in the original story. It was probably because Grandsta's influence made Rimuru's original team stronger than in the original story. Rimuru also broke free from Xian's Oni claws and looked at the Goblin Emperor with a serious expression. The final battle officially began. Grandsta planned to observe this time, so his figure appeared above the Ice Guardians. The Ice Guardians even thoughtfully formed an ice throne on top, which was Grandsta's exclusive treatment. Ice Guardians, stop all taunting skills for now. Rimuru is about to take action. Yes. The Goblin Emperor on the opposite side suddenly felt the forced traction on his body disappear. It wasn't that the Goblin Emperor didn't want to attack just now, but the Ice Giant's skill had been affecting him. Rimuru, I'm counting on you. Rimuru saw that Grandsta was already sitting on the Ice Guardians watching the battle. It was time for him, the big boss, to take action. The Goblin Emperor looked suspicious when he saw a beautiful girl walk out. He could tell that this girl was not a human but a Majin. Goblin Emperor, your invasion has seriously endangered the Jura forest. I have accepted the request of the Dryad race to subjugate you. As expected of Rimuru's personality, he had to make a righteous statement first. A hint of surprise flashed in the Goblin Emperor's eyes, which then turned into a cold snort. HMPH, so what if you are the forest manager? For the survival of the race, I must do this. What do you know? This world is ultimately a law of the jungle. Rimuru still looked naive. Then you can't start a war. Shut up, little dwarf. The Goblin Emperor didn't want to talk nonsense with the little dwarf in front of him and launched a tentative attack. Open black lens bracket dance of the dead close black lens bracket. Rimuru looked calm when he saw the Goblin Emperor's attack and raised a hand. Open black lens bracket predator close black lens bracket activated. A large mass of blue liquid formed a vortex, and all the dark red beams were swallowed up. Is this all you've got? As long as I devour you all, I can strengthen myself even more and be able to dominate the entire forest. The Goblin Emperor's teasing voice came. Rimuru couldn't help but laugh when he heard this. This Goblin Emperor, who had just advanced to Demon Lord, wanted to dominate the Jura forest. It seemed that he really didn't know how terrifying a certain ruthless guy was. Rimuru glanced at Grandsta's position when he thought of this. It seems that I have to show my true skills, or Grandsta will look down on me. It's your turn, Great Sage. Understood, entering automatic battle mode. As soon as Rimuru's voice fell, his eyes turned red, and control of his body was handed over to the Great Sage. This was the automatic battle permission that Rimuru had activated. In fact, Rimuru's combat experience could only be said to be a newbie. He didn't like to find evil monsters to kill everywhere like Grandsta, who had rich combat experience and skill proficiency. It was possible that Rimuru couldn't skillfully use all of his skills now. Then let me see the great sage's skills. Grandsta on the ice throne saw that Rimuru had switched to battle mode, and his eyes became slightly serious. The Goblin Emperor's figure rushed over directly. With his current physical strength, melee combat was his best way to fight. Open black lens bracket brute force close black lens bracket. Rimuru saw the Goblin Emperor charging towards him, and also drew out a long sword from his back. A layer of black flame was attached to the sword, like the fire of hell. In fact, a layer of open black lens bracket barrier close black lens bracket was covered on the sword, which not only improved the sword's attack power but also reduced wear and tear. Dust splashed up, Rimuru's crouching body shot out, and he raised his sword and slashed out. Swish! The Goblin Emperor knew that he had open black lens bracket flame resistance close black lens bracket and had a certain resistance to flames. Before he realized the seriousness of this blow, he wanted to use his arm to catch the sword. It seemed that he wanted to perform a barehanded catch of the black blade. The result was predictable. An arm fell directly to the ground and burned into nothingness, as if silently slapping the Goblin Emperor's face. Black flames were still attached to the neatly severed position of the arm, and even self-regeneration could not repair it. The angry Goblin Emperor directly and ruthlessly gnawed off the arm with black flames with his mouth and used self-regeneration from the root to recover. Rimuru sighed slightly in his heart when he saw the Goblin Emperor's cruel actions. The Goblin Emperor began to look at Rimuru warily. From the previous attack, it could be seen that this enemy was not simple. If he could devour this person as soon as possible, then his power could be used by the Goblin Emperor. Haha, watch out. The Goblin Emperor began to fully use his magic power and fully release his skills. Open black lens bracket dance of the dead close black lens bracket. This time, the Goblin Emperor used the open black lens bracket starved close black lens bracket effect on the beam, which had a terrifying corrosive effect, and attacked Rimuru from all directions. Rimuru frowned slightly. Blue vortexes appeared in both hands, and all the overwhelming beams were swallowed into his stomach. However, this attack was obviously intended by the Goblin Emperor to hold Rimuru back. Little guy, you're dead. A huge shadow appeared next to Rimuru, and a giant hand grabbed at him. It was impossible to dodge at this distance. Chapter 88, Flying Thunder God Technique. Lord Rimuru. Xian, hiding behind the Ice Guardian, cried out in alarm. Rimuru was now firmly in the Pig Emperor's grasp, and his wild laughter echoed. Devour you and become a part of my body. Even though Rimuru was caught in the Pig Emperor's hand, the expression on his face was calm. However, it seemed that Rimuru, controlled by the Great Sage, couldn't make any expressions. In fact, the Great Sage had already calculated this step, deliberately allowing himself to be captured. Chaos Devourer, devour everything. The Pig Emperor activated his ultimate devouring move, and wisps of smoke rose from Rimuru's body in his hand, almost turning into liquid. Rimuru's lips curled into a smile. The real Rimuru had already shouted in his heart. Now is the time, give the Pig Emperor a fatal blow, Great Sage. Flame Transformation Exploding Prison Array activated. The Pig Emperor was instantly horrified to see a giant red magic circle light up beneath his feet, and realizing that this was a trap, he looked at the smile on Rimuru's lips. Boom! A pillar of fire with a diameter of 12 meters rose into the sky, centered on the Pig Emperor's location. Ah! The screams were so shrill, and the skin tissue began to be destroyed. Even the Pig Emperor, with his fire resistance, couldn't withstand the tens of thousands of degrees of temperature at the center of the magic circle. As expected of the Great Sage, the battle is over. This was carefully calculated by the Great Sage. The Pig Emperor would definitely not be able to withstand such high temperatures, so victory belonged to him. The people behind the Ice Guardian couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief when they saw such a reversal. They were really sweating for Lord Rimuru just now. Especially Xian, who couldn't help but clench her fists together. As expected of Lord Rimuru. Benimaru and the others looked at Xian's reaction with embarrassment, wondering who was shouting so anxiously just now. However, Grandsta, sitting on the ice throne, frowned. Rimuru, it's not that simple. He knew that Rimuru in the original storyline killed the Pig Emperor by competing in devouring power. Indeed, the Dominator had already noticed the anomaly and reminded him. Lord Grandsta, the Pig Emperor's life signs are showing abnormalities, I'm afraid. Grandsta directly interrupted the Dominator's speculation. I'm afraid the Pig Emperor has already obtained flame resistance, so Rimuru's ultimate move has been nullified. The Pig Emperor, who was still screaming, stubbornly resisted for a few seconds in the tens of thousands of degrees of temperature. A voice of the world's will sounded in his mind. Flame resistance has evolved into flame immunity. Hearing the voice of the world's will, the Pig Emperor's voice changed from screams to manic laughter. Ah, ha ha. He was able to evolve flame immunity in desperation, and he immediately felt that the heavens were not going to kill him. What was this if not the person chosen by heaven, so he began to laugh wildly. Rimuru was about to exit the battle mode, but at this moment, an abnormality suddenly occurred, and he also heard the Pig Emperor's laughter, which was very harsh. The great sage's voice also sounded at this moment, but there seemed to be a hint of anxiety in his voice. An emergency has occurred. The Pig Emperor is suspected of obtaining flame immunity. Rimuru's little expression also froze. What the F, is this how we play it? I've already used my ultimate move, and this thing suddenly works again. Immediately recalculate. The red light in Rimuru's eyes, which was originally dimmed, now lit up again. Hey, great sage, forget it. Rimuru's body, controlled by the great sage, suddenly froze for a moment, but still exited the battle mode according to the order. Great sage, you've already done a good job, my good partner. The red light in Rimuru's eyes gradually faded. Flame seems to be useless to me now, haha. The Pig Emperor's mocking voice came. The Pig Emperor might be fortunate to be burned to death by the flames. Rimuru was not provoked by the Pig Emperor's mockery, but instead looked at the Pig Emperor with a calm expression. Looking at the calmness in Rimuru's eyes, a surge of anger arose in the Pig Emperor's heart. It's ridiculous, are you saying that you haven't shown your full strength so far? Humph, at this distance, you will be devoured by me in an instant, who will come to save you. The strength in his hand increased a bit as the Pig Emperor's voice fell. Rimuru smiled noncommittally. He indeed still had a trump card that he hadn't used, but compared to that, he still hoped to see the scene of the arrogant Pig Emperor in front of him being beaten violently. Have you heard of the Flying Thunder God technique? The Pig Emperor was also stunned when he heard this. He didn't understand what this guy he was controlling was talking about. Rimuru showed a mischievous smile on his face and took out a strange cube from his stomach. It's decided, it's you, Grandsta. Injecting magic power and throwing it hard, the cube flashed with blue light and hit the Pig Emperor's face. It wasn't just the Pig Emperor who was dumbfounded, even Benimaru and the others were dumbfounded, saying that they didn't understand what Lord Rimuru's operation was. What Rimuru threw out was the teleportation cube that Grandsta gave him. After Rimuru injected magic power into the teleportation cube, it began to unlock something, and small cubes began to scatter, forming a small vortex in the air. What is this? A trace of surprise flashed in the Pig Emperor's eyes. Rimuru looked at the location of the teleportation cube with a smug look, full of anticipation. A terrifying wave of magic power emanated from the vortex, but it seemed that it had heard Rimuru's last sentence, and the amazing wave slowly subsided. Seeing such a change, Rimuru's little face suddenly turned pale. What the F, Grandsta, don't sell me out. His voice trembled a little. But the vortex in the air seemed to have not heard it, and there was no reaction. Rimuru turned his head and looked at the Pig Emperor with a difficult expression, and weakly said. This is an accident, do you believe it? The Pig Emperor also turned his head and looked at Rimuru in his hand with unkind eyes, and touched the face that was hit with his other hand, and said in a flat tone. Actually, that hit just now hurt quite a bit, do you believe it? Looking at the increasingly heavy killing intent in the Pig Emperor's eyes, Rimuru had already cursed a certain friend who didn't save him countless times in his heart. Just as the Pig Emperor was about to strike a fatal blow. A faint voice came from behind the Pig Emperor, and Rimuru was also pleasantly surprised to look over when he heard this familiar voice. Hey, it's not okay to hurt my friend in front of me. The Pig Emperor's movements suddenly stopped, his body seemed to be fixed and unable to move, and his heart couldn't help but feel a burst of horror. Chapter 89 New Ability. The slow, drawn-out voice seemed to possess a magical power, freezing the Pig-head Emperor in his tracks. The Pig-head Emperor laboriously turned his eyes to the side, where he saw a blue-haired sprite with a boyish face smiling at him, or rather, at the Rimuru in his hand. Grandsta, I knew you'd come to save me. Hurry and get me out of here. Rimuru even managed to squeeze out a few tears that welled up in his eyes, making his expression as pitiful as possible. Grandsta simply rolled his eyes, and said in an annoyed tone. Acting, who are you trying to fool in front of me? And I haven't even settled the score with you for those 2 lines you shouted earlier. Rimuru gave an embarrassed smile. Hee, it just slipped out. Grandsta's face darkened even more. Rimuru, is that how you use the teleportation cube I gave you? This was a rare item that Grandsta had synthesized, originally intended for Rimuru to use when his life was in danger, because according to the plot, Rimuru would encounter a powerful enemy. But he never expected Rimuru to use it here, and even say such a chuny line. You really know how to play. Rimuru. Rimuru thought that this usage was perfectly fitting, and it was especially suitable for showing off. However, Rimuru certainly couldn't say what was on his mind, or he'd definitely get a flick on the forehead. Grandsta, I'm sorry, don't be angry, I'll explain it to you when we get back. Rimuru used his Moe tactics. Grandsta simply facepalmed, truly helpless with this guy Rimuru. Because of his appearance, the plot hadn't deviated, but Rimuru had gone a bit astray. If Miss Shizu knew that Rimuru was using her face to act cute, what expression would she make? Sigh. Hee hee. Grandsta flew in front of the frozen pig-head emperor and issued an order to the overlord in his mind. Overlord, cancel the restriction on the pig-head emperor's body. Yes. Instantly, the pig-head emperor felt that his body could move again, and he also released his grip on Rimuru. Just now, he felt like a puppet frozen in place. What kind of power is this? The elf who appeared could control his body without him even knowing. A hint of fear appeared in the pig-head emperor's eyes. Even with the pig-head emperor's current demon lord level strength, he couldn't sense the elf's aura without him actively releasing it, but he could tell from the way he was instantly restricted that his strength was stronger than his own. Instantly, a great sense of vigilance arose in his heart, and he didn't dare to make the slightest move. Rimuru was delighted that the power of restriction had disappeared. He had seen the scene just now. Was this another one of Grandsta's new abilities? So he curiously came to Grandsta's side. Grandsta, what is this ability? It's so cool. Grandsta also explained. This is a new ability of the Overlord after upgrading, Control. Control can inflict the restriction effect on targets with magic power lower than its own, and can grant the doom and domination effects to those who are afraid. These effects will not be explained for now, they will be used in later plots ****. Oh, it sounds like your strength has increased a lot again. Rimuru was a little embarrassed. They both came from the same cave. Grandsta was getting stronger every day, but what about himself? The pig-head emperor saw these two people talking back and forth, and he really wanted to interject. This is a battlefield. Please respect me, I'm still a demon lord. Grandsta seemed to have sensed the pig-head emperor's thoughts and turned his gaze to him. The pig-head emperor's originally angry mood suddenly felt like he had been doused with a basin of cold water. Rimuru, do you want me to take action? Rimuru nodded and waved his fist at Grandsta. I originally wanted to solve it myself, but seeing how arrogant he is, I'm a little annoyed. The pig-head emperor could only silently listen to Rimuru's complaint, like a child waiting to be taught a lesson. A moment later, Grandsta and the pig-head emperor's eyes met, and their auras began to be released. The pig-head emperor could now feel that the elf's magic power was like an abyss, the surrounding space felt frozen, and the temperature began to drop sharply. The little elf's form began to change. Seeing this, Rimuru immediately ran into Xian's arms, not forgetting to cheer for Grandsta. Grandsta, beat him up hard. Rimuru-sama. Xian held Rimuru in her arms, looking at Rimuru with some worry. Hongmaru's mouth curled into an arc. Since Grandsta-sama is taking action, then this battle is already without suspense. Sue was silent, and his expression showed his trust in the adult's strength. Only the Dragonute woman looked puzzled. Didn't you say that this Rimuru is the boss? Why do you all look up to that little elf as the main force? You guys. Hikuro also saw the Dragonute's confusion and stroked his beard with a chuckle. Dragonute-san, this adult is the one who named us ogres, and is also the master we will serve for life. The Dragonute looked incredulous. The other party actually had two demon lord leaders, and this one seemed to be the strongest. Looking at the ogres in the field, each of whom was stronger than her, she couldn't help but have some thoughts in her heart, and looked at Grandsta with some hope. The pig-head emperor knew that this battle was inevitable. He was the king of the pig-head tribe, and since he had chosen this path, he could not fall. King. At this time, several pig-head generals walked over and knelt in front of the pig-head emperor, lowering their heads. King, we are with you, let us become a part of your body. The calm tone echoed in this space, also representing the determination of their pig-head tribe. The pig-head emperor looked at these subordinates in front of him, nodded silently, and opened his bloody mouth to use the power of devouring. Even Grandsta couldn't help but frown at this scene. He's even devouring his companions. After the bloody scene, the pig-head emperor recovered all his strength by devouring his own tribe, and there were faint signs of becoming stronger. The Pighead Emperor can continuously become stronger with the glutton skill, and can also feed back to the tribe. This effect is indeed heaven-defying, but the side effects are very large. Seemingly regaining a little confidence from the enhanced power, he picked up the weapon of a subordinate next to him and charged towards Grandsta. Chaotic Glutton. Devour everything for me. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 90 Gap. Galindista watched Pighead Emperor's attack and released his domain skill in an instant, also changing his body form. Open black lens bracket extreme cold domain close black lens bracket. A chilling wind swept across the battlefield, and snowflakes fell in clusters, instantly dyeing the bloody battlefield white. Each strand of this chaos-devouring power seemed to carry the resentment of a devoured spirit, heading straight for Galindista. Galindista's entire body was covered in a layer of ice crystal armor, incomparably domineering. Open black lens bracket ice cut close black lens bracket. A glimmer of cold light flashed, and these chaos-devouring powers were like they encountered their nemesis, exploding from the strikes. Miserable cries rang out, and finally dissipated in the air. The power of vengeful spirits combined with devouring ability, not bad, but a pity. Galindista muttered, then the second magic skill followed closely. Open black lens bracket ice thorns close black lens bracket. Ice thorns shot out from the ground, tightly coiling around Pighead Emperor's body like ice snakes. Even with the power of devouring, they couldn't be completely broken. Pighead Emperor's charging figure also stopped, constantly tearing and devouring. Galindista had long guessed that Pighead Emperor wanted to rely on his terrifying physical strength for close combat. The only chance for the opponent to win was the glutton's terrifying devouring power. Even if Galindista didn't have the devouring power like Rimuru, he had the Dominator. Dominator, analyze and control Pighead Emperor's open black lens bracket glutton close black lens bracket skill. Received, analyzing for master. Relying on the effect of ice thorns, Pighead Emperor was temporarily restrained in place, and the Dominator was mobilizing computing power to fully analyze. Even if Galindista's magic power far exceeded Pighead Emperor's, it would still take some time to analyze a Demon Lord level skill. A moment later, Galindista-sama, analysis is complete. Do you want to open black lens bracket imprison close black lens bracket Pighead Emperor's devouring ability? The corners of Galindista's mouth curved into a good-looking arc. The upgraded Dominator had not disappointed him. Rimuru raised his hand and pinched a snowflake, sighing. Every time Galindista gets serious, he has to change the venue first. The temperature is a little lower again. On the other hand, Pighead Emperor, who originally wanted to rely on the advantage of his physical strength for close combat, but the opponent had already guessed his thoughts. He couldn't break free from the ice thorns no matter what. Just then, a burst of weakness suddenly came from his body, and his strength was flowing away. Pighead Emperor wanted to use his devouring ability to replenish the lost magic power, but he was horrified to find that his greatest reliance, the devouring power, could not be mobilized. Why? Pighead Emperor raised his head and looked directly at Galindista, only to see the handsome-faced elf looking at him with a smile that was not a smile. This power is not even from the same dimension. Full of despair, even if he devoured his own race and the power of the high-level crewmate demons, he couldn't even touch the hem of this man's clothes in front of him. Galindista didn't care about Pighead Emperor's mood at the moment, just shook his head. Pighead Emperor's Demon Lord status was still very watery. I'm afraid the only one he could beat was Clayman, that little shrimp. Clayman's original plan was to cultivate and control a Demon Lord behind the scenes, but unfortunately, the plan was doomed to fail. Open black lens bracket ice burst close black lens bracket. Boom. The last glimmer of hope in Pighead Emperor's eyes was also shattered by the terrifying ice burst power. Without the power of devouring, he couldn't withstand this blow at all. Even with self-regeneration it was useless. Unless Pighead Emperor could regain open black lens bracket ice resistance close black lens bracket and open black lens bracket physical immunity close black lens bracket, hee. This is impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Benimaru looked at the ice shards flying all over the sky, and at his lord's back, his eyes seemed to be emitting a strange color. Hikuro stroked his beard. This battle showed that Galindista-sama's strength should be far above the Demon Lord. It is truly an honor for this old man to serve such a lord. Rimuru was a little stunned. So fast. Pighead Emperor didn't even have the power to resist. Rimuru said that you solved the battle so quickly, where should I put my face? It's really embarrassing who is weak. Wait, I won't really become the village mascot in the future, will I? It wasn't just Benimaru and the others who were shocked, even the usually proud Dragonute woman's mouth was wide open, with an unbelievable look on her beautiful face. This difference. She also secretly glanced at the slime in Xian's arms who had a resentful look on his face, and then withdrew her gaze without leaving a trace. At the same time, she secretly made a decision in her heart. On the other hand, Pighead Emperor, after the aftermath of the ice burst gradually dissipated, a huge body was lying in a deep pit, his breath was very weak. His whole body had varying degrees of damage, and blood oozed from the corners of his mouth, quickly congealing into lumps in this extremely low temperature. Cough cough, I failed, our sins. Even when his life was at its lowest ebb, Pighead Emperor was still thinking about his clan. If it weren't for the disaster, their clan would have no food and could only wait to die. As their king, he couldn't do anything for the clan, for his children. They could only choose to invade the Jura forest, even if they became pawns, a controlled demon lord, he was willing. Galandista-sama, Pighead Emperor has no fighting will and is afraid of your strength. You can choose open black lens bracket fatal severance close black lens bracket or open black lens bracket domination close black lens bracket. Galandista put away his weapon when he heard the Dominator's prompt in his mind. Dominator, what is the use of this open black lens bracket fatal severance close black lens bracket? The Dominator's voice then sounded. After choosing open black lens bracket fatal severance close black lens bracket, Master can see Pighead Emperor's lifeline in the space and can cut it off at any time. Any creature whose lifeline is cut off will not be able to be resurrected by any means. Absolute death. Galandista gasped in his heart. The Dominator was indeed domineering, but he liked it. Immediately, some dense silk threads appeared in his mind space, among which the black silk thread was the thickest. Is this Pighead Emperor's lifeline? What are the others? All creatures that are afraid of Master can see their lifelines and choose to cut them off or dominate them. I see. Then the other lifelines should be the Pighead soldiers on the opposite side. Galandista withdrew from the space in his mind, but slowly came to Pighead Emperor's side. The originally dense dark clouds slowly dissipated, and the dim sky seemed to be shrouded in a new atmosphere. A ray of sunlight shone on Galandista's body. He sighed. Pighead Emperor, I cannot forgive your sins. Pighead Emperor struggled to open one eye and looked at Galandista. My sins are indeed unforgivable, but my people are innocent. I am willing to bear everything. Chapter 91 Devouring the Pig-Headed Emperor. A glimmer of hope flashed in the eyes of the Orc Disaster Lord. Galandis didn't speak, but instead looked towards the 100,000 Orc soldiers on the other side, seeing their fearful gazes as they dropped their weapons. The scene of Galandis overwhelming the Orc Disaster Lord had been too shocking for them. Their king, a king with the power of a demon lord. He had been defeated in moments by this elf, and they were filled with despair. They had lost. With such a powerful figure on the opposing side, what was the point of fighting? They just didn't know what fate awaited them. Orc Disaster Lord, I know that you took this path for the sake of survival, but I must judge your sins. Galandis pressed the ice demon sword against the Orc Disaster Lord's throat, the chilling aura sending shivers down his spine. The Orc Disaster Lord silently closed his eyes. However, you have another option. The Orc Disaster Lord opened his eyes again, his gaze fixed on Galandis. You want me to do that? Regarding this invasion by your orc tribe, I can promise you that I will only punish the ringleaders, but you must be devoured by a friend of mine. Galandis nodded towards Rimuru's direction. Following his gaze. A slime was lying comfortably in Xian's bosom, looking bewildered in the direction of the Orc Disaster Lord as if sensing the gaze. Why are they looking at me? What is Galandis saying to the Orc Disaster Lord? When the Orc Disaster Lord looked at Rimuru, his expression suddenly dawned on him. He already knew when he fought Rimuru that the slime had a devour skill. Haha, I see. The Orc Disaster Lord knew that he had no other choice, but before he died, he still wanted to do something for his tribe. I agree. Seeing that the Orc Disaster Lord had agreed. Galandis used telepathy to signal Rimuru to come over. Receiving Galandis's telepathic message, Rimuru bounced over. Galandis, you called me over because. Galandis frowned at Rimuru's bewildered expression. He almost forgot to tell Rimuru about this, so he told Rimuru his idea of devouring the Orc Disaster Lord. What? You want me to devour the Orc Disaster Lord? Can my predator evolve? Rimuru looked surprised and quickly asked his partner, Great Sage. Great Sage, after devouring the Orc Disaster Lord, my skills can still evolve. Great Sage was silent for a moment before responding. Notice. There is indeed such a possibility. The compatibility between predator and starved reaches 80%, and there is a very high probability of successful fusion and evolution. I see. Then Rimuru looked at Galindus strangely, feeling that this guy seemed to know everything. How do you know? Galindus spread his hands at Rimuru and casually explained. The Overlord must have told me. He wouldn't tell Rimuru that he knew all the plots in the Tempest world. Isn't it natural to know these things? Okay, hurry up and devour him. There are still 100,000 orc soldiers waiting for you to properly deal with, my big boss. Oh. Rimuru transformed into a liquid form and covered the orc disaster lord's huge body, fully activating the skill. Predator fully activated. The orc disaster lord's body gradually dissolved, and fragments of memories about the orc disaster lord flashed through Rimuru's mind, and he sighed. Orc disaster lord, although I have devoured all your skills and magic power, your body can still survive in my stomach. Perhaps there is a chance that you will be resurrected. The orc disaster lord, in his remaining soul state, knelt down to Rimuru. Thank you for your kindness, Lord Rimuru. But Rimuru already knew what the orc disaster lord wanted to say, waved his hand, and assured him. Don't worry, I promise to take good care of your people. Tears welled up in the corners of the orc disaster lord's eyes. Thank you both for your accomplishment, I will entrust my people to you. Yes, the orc disaster lord's soul form gradually blurred and dissipated, and was soon to be stored in the stomach. At this moment, Galindus suddenly sent a message. Remember to say hello to the two guys playing chess in the stomach for me and Rimuru. The orc disaster lord looked confused, wasn't he the first resident in the stomach? A stream of light followed the orc disaster lord and was swallowed into Rimuru's stomach. Rimuru turned to look at Galindus. What did you just send into my stomach, is it for the storm dragon Veldora? Galindus smiled slightly and nodded. Just a little toy to relieve boredom, they just happened to make a table. Ah, you used to say that I, a slime, often have nothing to do and tinker with useless things. Rimuru rolled his eyes unhappily, he was too lazy to complain. The voice of Great Sage sounded in his mind. Detected the starved skill, attempting to fuse with Predator. Fusion failed. Fusion failed. Activating degenerate ability. Fusion successful. Skill successfully upgraded to gluttony. Rimuru's little face lit up with joy, and he happily gave Galindus an okay gesture. At this time, in the stomach space. Haha, Ifrit, witness my superb chess skills. With a bang sound, a piece fell, full of momentum. Ifrit sat upright, his eyes fixed on the chessboard in front of him. Storm Dragon, you've fallen for my trap. With a raise of his hand, the cannon piece ate one of the Storm Dragon's horses across a pawn. Checkmate. Ah, the Storm Dragon looked at the chessboard in front of him in disbelief. When did this guy Ifrit learn to play dirty? What is called one wrong step, step by step wrong? In the end, the whole game is lost. Now there is a cannon threat in front, and the opponent's horse has invaded our own camp. Our own chariot has been tightly locked by the opponent, and one more step will be checkmated. It can be said that enemies are on all sides, guarding an empty city alone. The Storm Dragon's brows were tightly locked, and more than 100 strategies flashed through his mind. At this time, is this the stomach of Lord Rimuru? Where is the person Galindus asked me to say hello to? The Orc Disaster Lord walked in this dark space, holding a box in his hand. The Storm Dragon immediately noticed that a new resident had arrived, and a flash of surprise flashed in his dragon eyes. With a wave of his hand, the chessboard on the table scattered in a mess. He did not lose this game. Ifrit quickly stood up in shock. Storm Dragon, you're cheating again. The Storm Dragon snorted coldly, turned his head to look at Ifrit, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. HMPH. I had already thought of a way to break the game, but I just didn't want you to lose too badly. By the way, a newcomer has come, let's go meet him. The Storm Dragon finished speaking in an arrogant voice, and walked into the darkness without looking back. Chapter 92 Placement. Ifrit gave a wry smile. They were in a dead end just now, how could there be a way to break the situation? Even if Lord Storm Dragon wanted to be unreasonable, there was nothing he could do. He shook his head and followed behind the Storm Dragon. The Orc Lord looked around the space with a face full of doubt, noticing some movement behind him. You are. Before the Orc Lord could turn his head, his body was completely frozen, because in front of him was a huge dragon head. Santo, Storm. His tone became trembling. Ifrit shook his head with deep sympathy, seeing the Orc Lord completely frightened in place. He still remembered his expression when he first saw Lord Storm Dragon. Tisk, Orc Lord. You've got something, but it's a pity that you need connections to get ahead. The storm dragon began to size up the Orc Lord, finally focusing his gaze on the box in the Orc Lord's hand, his eyes lighting up. Awoo! The storm dragon roared excitedly. Kid, I can smell the aura of my two friends on you. Did they bring me any gifts? The Orc Lord felt his whole body tingle under the storm dragon's gaze. Hearing the question, he respectfully picked up the box that Grandsta had asked him to bring and handed it to the storm dragon. The two adults outside send their regards to you both. Furthermore, Lord Grandsta knows that the two of you are bored here, so he asked me to bring a small gift for you. Hearing this, the corners of the storm dragon's mouth almost split to the roots of his ears. Haha, I have received the kindness of my two friends, haha. That second brother Grandsta, he really has a heart. It's worth almost being drained by him last time. Speaking of the last time, after naming Grandsta, it actually consumed so much of his magic power. This little dragon almost got drained, and he still had some resentment in his heart, but now. The little dragon is very easy to coax. The storm dragon saw the small box and gestured to Ifrit, his little follower, to open it for him. Ifrit took the box from the Orc Lord's hand and opened it under the storm dragon's curious gaze. Inside lay quietly some cards, 54 in total, and something that looked like an instruction manual. The storm dragon's senses quietly swept across the instruction manual, and he instantly understood everything. Playing cards. There are such fun things in this world. This instruction manual detailed the rules and gameplay of playing cards. There were a total of 54 cards, including the Great Demon King and the Little Demon King. As a highly intelligent creature, the storm dragon quickly understood all the rules and gameplay. This Demon King fight is really too interesting. There are 3 of us, let's try it. The Orc Lord was dragged away by Ifrit with a look of horror, still not believing that all of this was real. Ahem, I think the Orc Lord is also a quasi-demon lord, and Rimuru has too few people under his command, so let's give Rimuru a subordinate as compensation. The dark clouds completely dispersed, and warm sunlight shone on this broken land. Rimuru looked around and announced loudly. We have won. Benimaru and the others also smiled. They had finally won this great battle. Gobta also shouted loudly. Lord Rimuru is awesome. Lord Grandsta is mighty. The Ice Wolf Knights also shouted along. The Lizardman warriors also followed the goblins and shouted. In contrast, the Orc army was completely dispirited. The moment the Orc Lord was devoured, the feedback power of the starved ones also disappeared. They were originally C-ranked or higher monsters, but the power they had devoured was slowly receding, and they would revert to D-ranked monsters. The Orc army could only quietly await the judgment of the victors. Rimuru approached Grandsta. Grandsta, what should we do with these Orc soldiers? I promised the Orc Lord that I would take good care of his people. Grandsta pondered for a while. Rimuru, do you want to settle all of them? It's not realistic, you know that there are now 120,000 of them. Moreover, they killed many Lizardman clansmen. I'm afraid this matter won't be easily resolved. Rimuru's little face immediately showed an unsightly expression. What should I do? Grandsta, you have to help me think of a way. Grandsta spread his little hands. You are our big boss, why are you asking me? He didn't want to stay here now, he just wanted to hurry back to the ice sculpture castle and get a good night's sleep. Seeing that Grandsta didn't want to care, Rimuru immediately grabbed Grandsta's robe and said pitifully. Grandsta, you can't just stand by and watch me die, help me come up with an idea. Rimuru grabbed his clothes, and seeing Rimuru's pitiful appearance, he sighed. It's all my fault for being too outstanding, to the point that Rimuru has started to rely on me. Alas, Rimuru, I actually have a way. Rimuru quickly brought his little ears closer. Actually, it's not difficult to settle these 120,000 Orc soldiers, as long as you. Rimuru started listening with an excited expression, but when he heard. What? You want me to come forward and integrate all the forces of the Jura forest? Ah, no. Rimuru refused directly as soon as he heard it. Why don't you do it? I think you have more deterrence. Grandsta rolled his eyes. Do you think I sleep all day, like someone who can be a leader? Don't forget your ideal. Rimuru's ideal. After a long silence, Rimuru finally made up his mind. Screw it, isn't it just being a leader, what's so difficult about that? Grandsta looked relieved, with the look of an old father on his face. Don't worry, you have me behind you. Rimuru called Sue and Gobta and the others. My lords, what are your orders for summoning me? Sue's rigid eyes were as cold as ever, but Gobta looked smug. He was the top contributor in this battle, how could he not be smug? He could brag about it in the village in the future. I'm giving you a mission, go and notify all the races in the Jura forest, and remember to invite the forest guardian over. My lord, may I ask for what reason? Rimuru thought for a while before answering. Just say that we are discussing how to deal with the defeated orc race, and the location will be at the Lizardman dungeon. Sue didn't ask why, but went to carry out the mission very simply, and also dragged away the confused Gavda. The chapter of founding the nation is about to begin. Chapter 93 The Free Female Dragon. Rimuru felt relieved seeing Sue and the others leave to carry out their missions. Sue was quite reliable. He brought Gabuta along to teach him, but with that personality, it would be difficult to entrust him with important tasks. Gresta, will they agree when the time comes? Will they really listen obediently? Gresta revealed a reassuring expression. Rimuru, just do it boldly, they will be very honest. In this world, strength is the ultimate language, and the monsters living here understand the laws of survival better than anyone. Moreover, Gresta had the intention of deliberately showing strength to the other races of the Jura forest. Just the terrifying size of the Ice Guardian was enough to inspire fear. It wasn't just the Ice Guardians who performed outstandingly this time. Just the orc soldiers that Benimaru casually eliminated numbered in the thousands, and the Frost Wolf cavalry charging on the battlefield also showed off their muscles in front of the lizardmen. Oh. Seeing Gresta's confident gaze, the trace of worry in Rimuru's heart disappeared. He trusted Gresta unconditionally. Although this guy was very lazy sometimes, he was very reliable in critical moments. Let's go to the dungeon and wait. We can leave the post-war handling to Benimaru and the others. Rimuru nodded and followed behind Gresta, while also summoning his Ranga. Master. As soon as Ranga appeared, he desperately wagged his tail, licking Rimuru frantically. Okay, Ranga, stop licking, haha. Rimuru transformed into a slime, feeling that it would be more polite to meet the Lizardman chief in his true form. Master, I was also looking forward to appearing, why didn't you let me fight? Ranga said with a bit of grievance. Haha, Ranga, Benimaru and the others are about to sweep the battlefield, don't join in the fun. It's safer to stay in my shadow. Rimuru comforted Ranga's little emotions with his small hand. Awoo, thank you for your concern, Lord Rimuru. Seeing his master caring about him so much, Ranga wagged his tail even faster. Hurry up and catch up, Rimuru. Gresta urged, seeing that Rimuru was still chatting with Ranga in place. Oh, coming. Rimuru sat on Ranga's back and followed. At this time, the Dragonute who had been observing Gresta and Rimuru from behind walked over and directly came in front of them. My lords, please wait a moment. Gresta and Rimuru, who had transformed into a slime, exchanged puzzled glances, both curiously looking at the Dragonute woman blocking their path. Dragonute miss, is there something you need? We were just about to see your chief to discuss some matters. Rimuru spoke first. The Dragonute's usually carefree personality suddenly became nervous, and she secretly glanced at Gresta. Seeing that he didn't show any displeasure, she couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. It's like this, my lords, the Lizardman dungeon is quite complex, and it would be very troublesome without someone familiar to lead the way. Ah, Rimuru gave the Dragonute woman a suspicious look. Is that so? Yes, please allow me to lead the way for the two of you. I have some status in the Lizardman tribe, which will make things easier. The Dragonute stated her purpose, but her eyes were mostly on Gresta. Even Rimuru, that slowpoke, understood. I see, your intention is not really about the drink, huh? Hey, can you not be so obvious? Your target is this guy Gresta, you can just tell him directly. For a strong person like us, what is a complex terrain? This reason is too perfunctory. Rimuru was speechless. This little girl was too bad at hiding it. Anyone could tell. Can you look at him a few less times? Gresta's keen senses had already noticed that this Dragonute woman had been watching him in the crowd, but he didn't expect her to come over proactively. Haha, if that's the case, Dragonute miss, thank you so much. Right, Rimuru. Seeing that the other party's target was him, Gresta politely returned a gentle smile, while also looking at Rimuru, subtly winking to signal. Seeing Gresta's suggestive wink, Rimuru reacted and also smiled in cooperation. Yes, then please trouble Dragonute miss to lead the way for us. Rimuru didn't expose the Dragonute woman's little thoughts, but followed Gresta's cue and gave her a way out. The Dragonute woman's beautiful face lit up with joy. In that case, please follow me, my lords. The Dragonute respectfully led the way in front. At this time, Rimuru secretly transmitted a voice to Gresta. Open black lens bracket Gresta, you're still so charming. I think this Dragonute miss is going to give herself to you for nothing. Hee. Close black lens bracket. Rimuru gave Gresta a knowing look without leaving a trace. He rolled his eyes at Rimuru, ignoring this playful guy. Instead, he carefully observed the Dragonute woman leading the way in front. This Dragonute gave him a very different feeling. He hadn't felt it before because of the distance, but now that he was closer, he could feel the divine power she unintentionally exuded, as well as that faint fluctuation. How strange, this fluctuation. A rare look of contemplation appeared in Gresta's eyes. It was already strange enough that she could evolve into a higher-ranking Dragonute on her own. If his magic perception wasn't several times that of an ordinary demon lord, he really wouldn't have been able to detect this anomaly. Master, let me carefully analyze this Dragonute. I feel there's a strange power in her body. Yes, analyzing for Master, starting deep analysis. Led by the Dragonute woman, Rimuru and Grandsta passed through the complex dungeon passages. There were still many blood stains on the walls that hadn't been cleaned. It was evident how tragic this war was for the Lizardman tribe. They suffered heavy losses just fighting the 30,000 orc soldiers that had flooded in. Along the way, they encountered many Lizardman soldiers cleaning the battlefield. When they looked up and saw the Dragonute woman, they all knelt down respectfully. Guardian Lord. The Dragonute nodded faintly and directly passed through this area that had not yet been cleaned. Rimuru curiously looked around, especially noticing that these Lizardman soldiers didn't dare to look directly at him and Gresta when they saw them, respectfully lowering their heads. It seems that this Dragonute has a high status in the Lizardman tribe, but why are they so afraid of us? Gresta was still curious why the Lord was taking so long to analyze this time, even longer than when he analyzed the Orc Lord's skills before. Strange, really strange. Chapter 94 Hidden Subspace. Just as they were about to enter the palace within the underground labyrinth, the Overlord voice echoed in Goulanjata's mind, tinged with a hint of smugness. Lord Goulanjata, the deep analysis is complete, and I must say, I am quite surprised. Oh. Goulanjata was slightly taken aback. What could have surprised the Overlord and required so much time to analyze? It's like this, Lord Goulanjata. During the deep analysis, an anomaly was detected, prompting an increase in computational power for analysis. And so, deep within this Dragonute's body, we discovered. Goulanjata's brow furrowed slightly. Are you saying that a hidden subspace was found within this Dragonute's body? Indeed. Why would a Dragonute possess a subspace within their body? Gazing at the figure before him, Goulanjata was filled with doubt. Overlord, can you attempt to analyze this subspace? We've already attempted it, but unfortunately, without success. Forcibly analyzing it would be too much for the Dragonute's body to handle. Furthermore, this subspace possesses characteristics similar to the infinite prison. Upon hearing this, a look of shock flashed across Goulanjata's face. He hadn't expected even the Overlord to be unable to analyze it. Lord Goulanjata, this subspace has an overworld-level sacred magic seal, and faint traces of sacred aura emanate from it. With our current capabilities, we cannot decipher it. Goulanjata listened to the Overlord explanation with a furrowed brow, while images from the analysis flashed through his mind. A golden triangular space hovered silently, surrounded by a misty golden aura, seemingly sealing something within. So, you're saying that she was influenced by the sacred aura, which caused a mutation in the dragon bloodline within her body? Yes. In other words, after the Dragonute's dragon bloodline mutated, the magical power within her body began to surge, transforming her from a B-rank demon into an A-rank demon, and through slumber, she evolved into a high-ranking Dragonute. Just as Goulanjata was deep in thought, he was suddenly interrupted by Rimuru's telepathic message. Goulanjata, what are you doing? You've been secretly eyeing the female Dragonute's figure. I know her figure is almost as good as Ziwan's, but you can't be so sneaky. We're almost at her hometown, so restrain yourself a bit. Goulanjata's face immediately darkened. He, a dignified ice spirit, certainly didn't have such lewd thoughts as this indecent slime. He glared at Rimuru, annoyed. I just found it a bit strange. Yeah, don't explain. Those who know, know. Goulanjata. He didn't want to say anything anymore. How had he been led astray by this indecent fellow? As they were about to step into the palace entrance of the underground labyrinth, the lizardmen guards at the entrance had already noticed them and respectfully lowered their heads. Several angry shouts echoed from within the palace. Upon the throne, the lizardmen chief looked grimly at Gawil, who was kneeling on the ground. Gawil, how dare you return? You have disgraced our clan. Gawil was speechless, burying his head even further into the ground. Father. A conflicted look flashed across the old chief's face as he struggled internally. Finally, he let out a sigh. Gawil, you previously attempted to rebel and even became the named subordinate of an evil Majin, nearly leading to the destruction of our clan. You are still my son, but if I don't punish you, I cannot appease the anger of the sacrificed clansmen. After a long silence, he seemed to have made up his mind, his eyes turning cold as he announced the verdict. These crimes combined are enough to warrant the death penalty. As the final word fell, Gawil raised his head, his gaze unwavering as he looked directly at his father. I am willing to bear all the blame. But before Gawil could finish speaking, a surprised voice echoed through the palace. The war has just ended, and the Lizardmen chief is already planning to punish someone. Gawil turned his head in surprise. It's actually those two lords. Rimuru and Gulonjata also entered the palace at this moment, the curious voice coming from Rimuru. So, the two lords have arrived. Forgive us for this unsightly scene. The old Lizardmen chief was extremely surprised to see Rimuru and Gulonjata's personal arrival. He quickly stood up from the throne and respectfully approached the two lords. We came at the request of the Lizardmen chief. Kangying said you wanted to meet us, so we came. Rimuru explained to the old chief. But as he approached Rimuru and Gulonjata, he suddenly knelt down, and even the head guard behind him followed suit, as did all the Lizardmen soldiers around them. Rimuru was completely stunned. Ah, Lizardmen chief, what are you doing? The old chief lowered his head and respectfully addressed the two lords. If it weren't for the two lords, our clan would have been destroyed long ago. We represent the entire clan in expressing our gratitude to you. Seeing their insistence, Rimuru reluctantly accepted the Lizardmen's gratitude, while Gulonjata nonchalantly lagged half a step behind Rimuru. It was more appropriate to leave such matters to Rimuru. Don't forget, we are allies. Moreover, as a member of the Jura forest, I cannot simply stand idly by. Rimuru's righteous words instantly captivated the hearts of all the Lizardmen present. Lord Rimuru, you truly are. The old chief was slightly moved for a moment. Seeing their moved expressions again, Rimuru suddenly felt a headache coming on. I was just saying that casually. Among them, one gaze was particularly fervent, causing Rimuru to look over involuntarily. It was Gawil, kneeling on the ground. Is this the magnanimity of a lord? This is the person I should admire. The fervor in Gawil's eyes seemed to materialize, blinding Rimuru. Who is this person? This gaze is too intense. Rimuru exclaimed, unable to bear it. Reporting, this is Gawil, the former Lizardmen messenger. The great sage intervened to remind its forgetful host. So, it's Gawil. I remember now. Why is he kneeling there, looking like he's about to be judged? Rimuru muttered to himself. The old chief, standing in front of Rimuru, heard Lord Rimuru's question. This is my son. He attempted to lead the clan against the orc army and was even named by that evil Majin, nearly leading to the destruction of our clan. Only then did Rimuru realize that Gawil was the old chief's son. Who doesn't have immature children? Besides, he was only being used by crewmate. I think Gawil is quite interesting. He patted the old chief's shoulder, comforting him. What? But the old chief's sudden reaction startled Rimuru. Since it is Lord Rimuru's will, then we can only. Gulonjata stroked his chin in the back, looking at Rimuru meaningfully. Rimuru, do you even know what you just said? Judging from Rimuru's expression, he clearly hadn't realized anything yet. Chapter 95 Meeting begins. The old chief looked at Gawil, who was kneeling on the ground, a hint of joy flashing in his eyes. Since Lord Rimuru has said so. Gawil's expression also changed. He didn't expect the powerful Rimuru to still remember him. Then, commute his death sentence to banishment from the Lizardman tribe. Gawil's future actions will have nothing to do with our tribe. Father. As soon as the old chief finished speaking, two Lizardman soldiers dragged Gawil away. Lizardman chief, we can talk about serious matters now. Oh, please sit. The old chief invited Rimuru and Gulista to the upper seats. Actually, we came this time to discuss how to deal with these orc soldiers after the war. Rimuru explained to the Lizardman chief. He wanted to invite representatives of all races in the Jura forest to hold a discussion, and he especially emphasized that the forest guardian would also support it. Lord Rimuru and Lord Gulista, post-war disposal does indeed need to be discussed. Our Lizardman tribe will also support it and will definitely arrange a venue for the meeting. The old chief didn't expect Rimuru to be so amiable and nodded in agreement. He just didn't understand how to deal with these problems. After all, the orc soldiers had killed many members of their tribe. That's good. Lizardman Chief, let's discuss it together when everyone is here tomorrow. Okay. The next day, Sue and Gavta, panting heavily, returned, accompanied by Miss Trainee, a dryad. Lord Rimuru and Lord Gulista, upon hearing the news of your successful subjugation of the Orc Lord, I want to thank you on behalf of the Jura Forest. Trainee herself is a large tree, and she can only use magical energy to condense a physical body, but she had already sensed the great battle with the Orc Lord. Therefore, her gaze was mostly directed at Gulista, as she knew that this lord was the one who truly defeated the Orc Lord. However, her gaze seemed to carry a hint of resentment. Cough cough. Gulista felt uncomfortable being stared at by Trainee, afraid that she would bring up the previous matter again, and he had deliberately gone out to avoid her. Lord Gulista, I originally planned to bring my sister with me, as she has admired you for a long time. Trainee said with a hint of complaint. But considering that this is a discussion of important matters, I didn't bring her along. Gulista couldn't possibly not hear the resentment in Trainee's tone, and he could only smile awkwardly. Trainee, I'm still considering that matter. Why don't you bring her to the ice sculpture castle to see me when you have the chance? Maybe it can dispel her thoughts. Trainee sighed faintly. Then that's the only way. Soon, all the members of the meeting arrived and took their seats in turn. Of course, the positions at the top were for Rimuru and Gulista even lazily yawned. What he hated the most was attending such meetings. You should know that after Rimuru became a demon lord, he liked to hold meetings whenever something happened, and was known as the meeting demon lord. Behind Gulista, Benimaru, Shuna, Hikuro, and Sue stood straight. Because Xian was serving as Rimuru's secretary, she was now holding Rimuru in his slime form. On the left-hand side were Trainee, the forest guardian, the female Dragonu, the lizardman chief, and the captain of the guards. On the right-hand side were naturally the subjects to be judged at this meeting. They were the representatives chosen by the remaining orcs, one of whom seemed to be the Orc Lord's son. Now that all the meeting members have arrived, let me put an end to this farce. Rimuru glanced at everyone present and began to speak. Since Lord Rimuru has said so, let's begin the trial of the orc race. The lizardman chief looked faintly at the row of orc generals opposite him. Their tribe had almost been wiped out. In this battle, even though the lizardman tribe had gained an advantage in tactics and terrain, they had still sacrificed thousands of lizardmen. This was a blood feud. As for the orc generals who were glanced at by the lizardman chief, they could only obediently lower their heads. As the defeated party, they had no right to speak. Seeing the hatred on the lizardman chief's face, Rimuru could understand. If so many members of his tribe had died, he would also be very angry. But he had already made a decision in his heart, so Rimuru spoke again. First of all, I have decided not to pursue the crimes of the remaining orcs in this war. Moreover, the chief culprit has already been executed. In fact, even if they were to pursue the crimes of the orcs, they would not be able to make any compensation. They were already driven to desperation by the disaster and were used by someone behind the scenes, which led to this invasion war. Lord Rimuru, if you do this. The lizardman chief stood up in shock, with an incredulous expression. Rimuru gestured slightly with his small hand, telling the old chief not to be agitated. Old chief, I know that your tribe suffered heavy losses in the war, but have you ever thought that if these 120,000 orcs are not properly handled, chaos will arise again? This can be considered my selfish request. The lizardman chief was silent for a moment, then sighed and sat back in his seat. At this time, Benimaru stood up and interjected. The reason for the orcs' riot has already been investigated. Because of the disaster, they have no food left, so they set their sights on the Jura forest. Benimaru told everyone the results of the post-war investigation, including the involvement of unknown Majin. The purpose of doing so was perhaps to shift everyone's resentment towards the orcs, and Rimuru understood this. He glanced at Gulista next to him with gratitude, knowing that he had signaled Benimaru to suddenly explain. If that's the case, then indeed. Trainee did not speak at this time, but was constantly observing Gulista and Rimuru's attitudes, because she knew that the decisions of these two would be the final result. They were called together to have a meeting, which was said to be a discussion together, but in fact, it was more accurate to say that it was a notification to everyone. Trainee also looked at Gulista, who was squinting his eyes. If it's this lord's idea. The meeting suddenly became quiet. In fact, there were still many people who were not satisfied with this decision, knowing that they had shed too much blood. And at this time, Hikuro chuckled and stood up, opened one eye and looked around, finally landing on the lizardman chief. In fact, our ogre tribe was also destroyed by the orcs, even more thoroughly. This lord, then you. We will listen to the will of the two lords in everything, and we will have no complaints. Hakuro's words seemed to reveal an expression of course. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audiobook YouTube channel. Chapter 96, Founding of a Nation. Hearing what Bai Lao said, the Lizardman chief could only silently withdraw the dissatisfaction in his heart. As a chief, he knew that in this world, strength speaks, and the first rule of the forest is the law of the jungle. Rimuru saw the Lizardman chief's silence, seemingly acknowledging it in his heart, and timely decided on his attitude. I am willing to bear all the sins of the orcs, you can raise any dissatisfaction with me. The orc general, who was waiting for judgment with a lifeless expression, raised his head in disbelief and looked at Rimuru. Wait, this is after all the sin we committed, how can we let the Lord do this? Without the influence of the starved effect, the orcs were still very simple, and quickly stood up to say that they dared not let the Lord do this. Rimuru was also straightforward. This is my agreement with the demon lord Clayman, you don't have to have any psychological burden. When these orc generals heard this, they all showed a look of loneliness on their faces and fell silent. Has their king done so much for them? At this time, everyone was surprisingly silent, especially after Rimuru's sentence. You can raise any dissatisfaction with me. How dare everyone have any dissatisfaction? Didn't they see the scrutinizing gaze of Xian behind Lord Rimuru? It was extremely terrifying. If there were anyone present who was qualified to express dissatisfaction, there were only two, one was Trainee, and the other was the Lizardman chief. Trainee had already stated her position as soon as she appeared, and the meeting had been like a bystander until now. As for the Lizardman chief, he also fell into contemplation at this time. After a moment, he finally spoke. Actually, I have no objection to Lord Rimuru's decision. The Lizardman chief's gaze looked at Rimuru and also at Lord Grandsta beside him. There is one thing that I want to confirm no matter what. Rimuru looked at the Lizardman chief indifferently. Oh, if you have any doubts, please speak. The Lizardman chief knew that his actions were a bit rude to the powerful Rimuru. But he didn't mean to question Rimuru. As the head of a clan, he needed to consider the clan. How are you going to deal with these nearly 120,000 orcs? Not planning to punish them, does that mean Rimuru is planning to take in all of their remaining people? Rimuru also fell silent. It must be known that even though the number of orcs has decreased, there are still as many as 120,000, how could their village take in so many people on their own? The food consumption of these 120,000 orcs alone is currently the biggest problem. Fortunately, he had discussed it with Grandsta before, and it was time to put forward his own ideas. Everyone, what I'm about to say may sound a little unbelievable, but I hope everyone can assist me. When the Lizardman chief heard this, it seemed that Lord Rimuru already had his own ideas, perhaps they could listen. What does Lord Rimuru mean? Rimuru cleared his throat, and slowly uttered in a light tone. My idea is that all the races of the Great Jura Forest unite, preferably to form a large alliance. Everyone except Grandsta was shocked by such a grand idea. Lord Rimuru, is your idea for the sake of? The Lizardman chief looked into Rimuru's eyes, and it didn't seem like he was talking nonsense. That's right, if that's the case, the Lizardmen will provide high-quality freshwater resources and fish. The goblins will provide housing. In return, let the orcs provide labor, only need to help them through the early food problem, and then they only need to be self-sufficient. The Lizardman chief, who had recovered, said to Rimuru. Lord Rimuru, are you going to accept the orcs into the Great Jura Forest? That's right. Rimuru's idea was like this, he couldn't leave these 120,000 orcs alone. Perhaps gathering the power of all races could solve these problems, and also realize his own ideas. It must be said that Rimuru's idea was too bold. Finally, Grandsta, seeing that the meeting that had been dragging on for so long had not yet been finalized, couldn't help but speak. I think what Rimuru said is feasible. Why not establish a country in the Great Jura Forest where all races coexist? A free country composed of us monsters. Grandsta's voice fell, and the whole place was silent for a few minutes. Rimuru looked at Grandsta in surprise. Didn't this guy usually dislike managing these things? But is it really good to say it so bluntly and unquestioningly? Won't they have rebellious psychology in their hearts? Pa. A sudden applause sounded, and an unexpected green figure stood up. I think Lord Grandsta is right, if we are to accept these orcs, perhaps establishing a country is a very good choice. Trainee stood up to speak. She expressed her great agreement with Lord Grandsta's idea. Since the Forest Guardian has spoken, then I also agree. The others looked at each other and nodded in agreement tacitly. Rimuru looked dumbfounded. Good fellow, I had been grinding for half a day just now, and everyone was still hesitating. How come Grandsta spoke so bluntly, and everyone agreed. Grandsta's power is so effective. In fact, Rimuru's personality is still too indecisive. In the world of monsters, everything is based on the strong being respected, and obeying the strong is their survival principle. Even if Rimuru was a little more assertive and didn't speak so politely, perhaps Grandsta wouldn't have to speak. The happiest thing was the orcs. What they invaded the great Jura forest for was survival. Now they have instead obtained it. They must thank these two lords. Can we also become a member of the great Jura forest? We are really too grateful. The simple orc generals were tearful and knelt in front of the two lords, heavily kowtowing their heads on the ground. The ground was banging. Rimuru was also extremely ashamed to see their actions. Ahem, you should still get up. You will also be considered a member of the great Jura forest in the future. Remember not to be lazy when you are asked to work. The orc generals patted their chests and assured. We will definitely work hard and never be lazy. Varied potential black slaves. Well, your food will be temporarily handed over to us. Trainee also stood up with a smile at this time. Our dryads will also provide some forest fruits to alleviate the food pressure. We are really too grateful to you, Miss Trainee. The meeting proceeded here. Trainee also proposed that a Jura Forest Alliance leader should be elected. Hero King Gazel is about to descend on the Great Jura Forest, and the second duel with Grandsta is about to begin. Oh. The Elf King, this little guy, is also on his way. Chapter 97. Leader Rimuru. Upon hearing Tolin's suggestion, everyone nodded with serious expressions. The Lizardman chief, his aged face showing a hint of wisdom, was the first to speak, saying, I believe the only ones qualified to be our leader are the two adults before us. This statement was met with high agreement, and everyone nodded in approval. Tolin gently pursed her lips, her eyes subtly falling on Gulista. The meaning was self-evident. Behind Rimuru, Xian's originally gloomy expression returned to normal. Casting a meaningful glance at the Lizardman chief, she nodded in satisfaction. Her inner monologue was, this old man finally said something I agree with. He has so many opinions. I won't bother him after the meeting. After the Lizardman chief finished speaking, he immediately felt the chill on his back disappear, and he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief in his heart. At such an old age, he was still being targeted by others. Life was not easy. Tolin also stood up at this moment. Since that's the case, the candidates for the leader will be Lord Gulista and Lord Rimuru. They successfully defeated and killed the Orc Lord for the Jura Forest, saving everyone from the brink of disaster, and their achievements are obvious to all. In the interest of fairness, all Alliance members will vote to elect a leader, and from now on, we must all obey the leader's orders. Tolin's solemn voice echoed in the underground palace. The election officially begins. Everyone present began to converse, their eyes darting between Gulista and Rimuru. A goblin representative attending the meeting whispered to his companion. I think that Lord Gulista is super handsome, especially the scene where he defeated the Orc Lord. The leader is our spiritual guide and we can't only value strength. Wait a moment. A voice directly interrupted the discussion. Gulista's originally narrowed eyes opened at this moment. With his perception, the sound of the discussion was as noisy as if it were right next to his ears. It was really a headache. The current plot was no longer following the original work, and now they were even holding an election. Everyone who had been interrupted turned their doubtful gazes over, and the room instantly fell silent. Tolin smiled at Gulista. Lord Gulista, do you have something to say? Gulista looked at Tolin in front of him, a look of helplessness on his face. If he really let them continue with this election, he was afraid that the burden would fall on his shoulders. Rimuru also looked at Gulista strangely. Open black lens bracket Gulista, what's wrong? Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket don't talk, leave the rest to me, close black lens bracket. Gulista looked around at everyone present, his calm gaze sweeping over them. I want to withdraw from the leader candidate. Tolin covered her small mouth in surprise, and everyone's reaction was a bit slow. The most confused was Rimuru. What? Tolin asked in a questioning tone. Lord Gulista, have you really decided to withdraw from the leader election? Yes. Gulista nodded firmly. He was joking. If he was really elected, it would be terrible and would deviate from his original intention. I have also decided to support Rimuru as the leader. For no other reason than Rimuru was originally the head of our village, and I believe everyone can also trust Rimuru's leadership ability. Most importantly, during Rimuru's tenure as the head, our town has developed rapidly, from being originally empty-handed to the current prosperity. Moreover, the strength of all members has also improved qualitatively. All of this is thanks to Rimuru's contribution. Gulista's expression was serious, as if he was announcing an important matter. So, everyone, please believe me, you can't go wrong choosing Rimuru. His sonorous voice echoed in the space. After hearing Lord Gulista's words, everyone looked at the inconspicuous slime in surprise, with admiration on their faces. I didn't expect Lord Rimuru's ability to be so outstanding. He really has the demeanor of a leader. No wonder they are so powerful. It turns out they have the wise leadership of Lord Rimuru. Admire. Admire. Seeing that the discussions were all starting to focus on Rimuru, and they also had a new understanding of Rimuru. Especially the Lizardman chief, he knew how difficult it was to lead a tribe, and he looked at Rimuru with even more appreciation. I didn't expect Lord Rimuru. Seeing this scene, the corners of Gulista's mouth curled up slightly. Then, he felt something gently tugging at the corner of his clothes. He turned his head curiously and saw Rimuru's dazed eyes. The slime's body was already bubbling, and his two small eyes were rolling around. Rimuru was already dazed by Gulista's words, and his mind had not yet turned around. When did he become so great? Gulista, how come I didn't know I was actually? Gulista covered Rimuru's mouth, put Rimuru back in Xian's arms, and motioned for Xian to hold him up high. Didn't I tell you not to talk? Leave everything to me. Gulista solemnly waved his hand to signal everyone to be quiet, and then cleared his throat and continued. So, I suggest that Rimuru be the leader of the Jura Forest Alliance. Please raise your hands if you agree. At this time, everyone also believed that Rimuru was the best candidate for the leader, and with Lord Gulista's guarantee. They only hesitated for a moment. They raised their hands representing their votes, and even the Lizardman chief raised his hand without hesitation. I think Lord Rimuru will lead us on a new path. Yes, that's how I feel too. Haha, that's right, that's right. Seeing that their ideological awareness was so high, Gulista also nodded. Just as everyone was raising their hands, one person was still hesitating. She was Tolene, and she was now hesitating. Her original idea was to have Gulista be the leader. In her heart, she actually preferred Gulista more. The reason was nothing else, but because Gulista was an elf, and she was originally by the side of the Elf King. Until Gulista's gaze looked over, seeing that Tolene had not made a decision for a long time. A telepathic message entered Tolene's mind, causing Tolene's delicate body to tremble slightly. She sighed resentfully. I also agree. Tolene and Gulista's eyes met, with a hint of resentment in her eyes. Cough cough. Gulista immediately looked away and touched his nose. With Tolene's final vote, it meant that Rimuru had obtained everyone's approval, and at the same time, it meant that he had become the leader of the alliance. Rimuru, who was being held up high, was still a little dazed at the moment. Haha, everyone. Chapter 98 The Poor Worker. Gulinsuda took the lead in applauding. Clap clap. He looked at everyone with a smile, and then the applause followed. Congratulations to Rimuru on becoming the leader of the alliance. Xian's face showed a smile. To her, it didn't matter which adult was the leader, they were all her own. Only Rimuru looked at the applause blankly, at a loss. In fact, Rimuru wanted to say, I don't really want to be the leader of this alliance either. Didn't you see that Gulinsuda has started to act abnormally? This job is definitely a pain in the ass. Shouldn't there be a fair election? How could he be unanimously approved under Gulinsuda's operation? Rimuru originally thought that his chances would be smaller under a normal election. But, clap, a hand gently patted Rimuru. Gulinsuda came to Rimuru's side and gently rubbed Rimuru's soft body. Rimuru, what are you thinking about? You're already the leader of the alliance, so why don't you give your brother a smile? ... The post-war handling work is the most painful. Lord Rimuru, the remaining number of ogres has been counted, a total of 128,672. Oh, thank you for your hard work. Rimuru sat on Ronga's back and nodded to the person reporting in front of him. In this wetland of the lizardmen, below Rimuru stood a dark mass of ogres, and on one side were the lizardmen. There were also tens of thousands of lizardmen here, and now they were all quietly looking up at the slime above, with a hint of surprise in their eyes. Rimuru looked at the dark mass of races in front of him. Fortunately he didn't have any trypophobia or anything like that. He recovered his normal expression and began to speak. Ahem. Everyone, from now on I will be your leader. Gathering everyone here is to let everyone know. Normal speech declaration, because today is the first day of the Alliance's establishment, some things still need to be explained. In simple terms, it is to draw a big cake for these people. Well, the standard operation of leaders is to maintain the enthusiasm and identity of the entire collective. Immediately afterwards, Rimuru's voice continued. There is also one thing to announce, I am going to give all of you a name. Rimuru's words directly shocked the audience, even the lizardman leader was stunned. Then, Gulansuda stood not far away and silently turned away. He wasn't leaving, but had already known about Rimuru's operation. Hey, let me see if there are enough magic potions in the material library. Oh, it seems like there aren't enough, then I'll ask Rimuru for some materials. Anyway, it's for him to use. All the ogres and lizardmen became restless, and for a while they all looked at the small figure above with incredible eyes. Did I hear correctly? The new leader is going to name each of us. This is simply incredible. Ah, I must worship this supreme boss. Voices like this rang out in the field, one after another. After a long time, Rimuru knew that he had to let them be excited for a while, and then signaled everyone to be quiet. So please stand in line and come to me one by one. Benimaru and the others were not idle, organizing goblin cavalry to help. Well, I'm so tired. Goo goo. The katakana is used up, then use Arabic numerals. Goo goo. No more magic power. It took a full 10 days. Most of the people have already been named, except for a small number of people. Rimuru started with the old and weak. Even these people had already exhausted Rimuru. So Rimuru had successfully collapsed from exhaustion and was hugged in Gulansuda's arms, shaking his head. Tisk tisk, if you're not awesome, who is? Rimuru the miserable worker is talking about you. Benimaru walked over at this time, followed by a group of ogres with deep auras. Lord Gulansuda, these are the former ogre generals of the ogre race, who said they want to follow Lord Rimuru. Oh, little fans. Gulansuda swept his gaze lightly over these ogres, who were still unnamed ogre generals, and their auras were also around B rank. And the ogre wrapped in black cloth at the head should be the son of the ogre lord, or the future ogre king. But these have nothing to do with Gulansuda. Then wait for Rimuru to wake up and give it to him. After Gulansuda finished instructing Benimaru, he specially told him to take good care of Rimuru. Shion appeared at this time. He quickly took Rimuru from Gulansuda's hand, with a worried look on his face. Leave Lord Rimuru to me. Gulansuda had long wanted to return to the ice sculpture castle. It was enough to leave the affairs here to Rimuru and Benimaru and others. Lord Gulansuda, are you going back? Yes, I'll take the ice guardian back, and I'll leave it to you here. After Gulansuda finished speaking, a pair of wings appeared on his back, turning into a stream of light. Benimaru stood quietly in place, watching Lord Gulansuda's departure. A figure quietly followed. Gulansuda came to the shoulders of the ice guardian and sat down casually. Well, there are too many things to deal with here. Now it's up to Rimuru. Let's go home. When the ice guardian saw Lord Gulansuda lying down, his huge body slowly stood forward, and ice mist scattered. Yes, just as the ice guardian was about to take a step and leave, a figure blocked the way. Gulansuda's eyes, which had just narrowed, opened again, looking down. So it's you. Then Gulansuda's doubtful voice came. Miss Dragonute, do you have something to stop me? The female Dragonute raised her beautiful eyes, her golden hair falling behind her, standing silently in place. Gulansuda frowned slightly. How did he feel a faint fighting spirit on this Dragonute? No way. The female Dragonute also had a reaction at this time. She saw her staring intently at Gulansuda with fiery eyes, moving her slightly thin lips. A golden flame wrapped around her body, wrapped around her weapon, and slowly raised it. I'm here to challenge you. A clear voice sounded, seemingly echoing her determination, and a layer of golden armor appeared on her body, like a golden flame Valkyrie. Gulansuda's expression froze. Challenge him. Before Gulansuda could respond, the Ice Guardian's rumbling voice sounded. HMPH, our lord just helped the lizardmen, but you want to challenge our lord's majesty. As soon as the Ice Guardian's voice fell, a huge fist slammed out, and Gulansuda didn't even have time to stop it. Bang! Sparks of metal collision splashed, and a dull and harsh sound rang out. Cough cough. Chapter 99, The Challenge of Overcoming the Strong. A smear of scarlet blood trickled from the dragonkin's lips, which she nonchalantly wiped with the back of her hand. Bang! The space where the weapon and fist collided quivered, and several cracks appeared in the ground beneath their feet. The dragonkin barely managed to grit her teeth and hold on, her gaze fixed on Gulantasta, the determination in her eyes growing stronger, flashing with a hint of defiance. It was as if a stubborn little girl wanted to gain the approval of an adult, stubbornly trying to prove her ability. The Ice Guardian, seeing that his fist had actually been blocked by such a small creature, a human-like expression of surprise appeared on his ice rock-formed head. Hey! In the Ice Guardian's mind, the difference in size was so great that the female dragonkin was like a little girl in front of him. How could a little girl possibly block his punch? To offend the Master's majesty, death is the only punishment. The rumbling voice conveyed unwavering faith, and the ice rocks on the Ice Guardian's body churned, releasing his magical aura without reservation, forming a wave of white energy. The surrounding trees, eroded by the extremely cold aura, were transformed into ice sculptures and then shattered into pieces. A look of shock flashed in the female dragonkin's golden pupils, a wave of energy struck her body, and she felt a surge of tremendous force, then her body flew backwards. This big lump, how can the magic power inside be so strong? She had seen the Ice Guardian clash with the Pig-Head Emperor before, and only knew that this big lump had super high defense, which even the Pig-Head Emperor couldn't do anything about. Dong! Dong dong! The ground trembled, the heavy earth emitting a mournful groan, and with each step the Ice Guardian took, the level ground sank a little. Gulantasta flew up from the Ice Guardian's body, wryly patting the ice shards off himself. That Ice Guardian, really, I was lying on him, and now I'm covered in ice shards. After cleaning up, Gulantasta looked at the dragonkin who was struggling to stand on the ground, and could not see a trace of fear on her face. The fighting spirit on her body had not diminished by half. Interesting. An idea of testing her couldn't help but arise in his mind, so Gulantasta did not step in to stop it. Instead, he thoughtfully helped them delineate a battlefield. He silently recited in his mind, "Overlord, help me delineate a radius of 1,000 meters around, and construct an isolation barrier." Gulantasta didn't want the commotion of this battle to be noticed by Hongmaru and the others outside, otherwise it would be difficult to explain if they rushed over in a swarm. After all, they were also allies with the lizardmen now. Received, constructing an isolation barrier, concealing magic aura, minimizing combat ability, blurring vision. In just a moment, a blue magic circle appeared simultaneously at each of the four corners of the 1,000-meter radius area, the inscriptions on it constantly rotating, and a blue light curtain rose up, until it surrounded the battlefield. If viewed from above, this area had become a blur. Construction successful. Overlord, good job. Gulantasta felt that the Overlord seemed to convey a sense of joy, making him wonder if it was an illusion. But the Ice Guardian and the female dragonkin in the barrier did not notice the changes around them. At this time the magic power in their bodies had converged to the peak. On the dragonkin's exquisite face, a trace of stubbornness flashed. She gritted her teeth and looked up without fear. Ice Guardian, step aside. I'm here to challenge the Lord behind you. The aloof and cold voice entered the Ice Guardian's ears, but hearing it in his ears was like a provocation, and the anger in his blue phosphorescent eyes grew even stronger. Daring to provoke my lord, you are really courting death, unless you step over my corpse first. In the Ice Guardian's heart, Lord Gulantasta was like a god, sacred and inviolable, and all those who dared to disrespect the Master would be regarded as enemies. The Master created him, and even bestowed the name Ice Guardian. He was the Master's most loyal guard. My lord bestowed upon me the king of guardianship. Those who dared to defy me from below, accept the punishment of ice. The cold voice was as firm as ice. The dragonkin did not expect the Ice Guardian's reaction to be so great, but the thoughts in her heart did not waver in the slightest. But at this time, the Ice Guardian actually condensed a spear of ice dozens of meters long in his hand, and at the tip, the ice phosphorescent light distorted the space. Good heavens, he's really getting serious. Gulantasta hovered in midair, raised his eyebrows slightly when he saw the spear in the Ice Guardian's hand. But turning his gaze to the female dragonkin's side, she didn't make any response. He guessed that this dragonkin's goal was him, and she didn't want to fight the Ice Guardian. But how stubborn. Gulantasta had no choice but to convey a sentence to the female dragonkin's mind with his thoughts. Aren't you going to challenge me? You only have the qualifications if you pass the Ice Guardian. The female dragonkin's body trembled slightly, a flash of surprise flashed in the gaze she gave Gulantasta, and then she looked at the Ice Guardian with a serious expression. If that's the case, then I'll prove whether I have this qualification or not. Arrogant. The dragon blood in her bones was already surging and boiling, a sense of fulfilling power swept through her body, and arrogant emotions gradually dominated her calm brain. The Ice Guardian unhesitatingly threw out the spear of ice in his hand, and the space it passed through was torn apart, creating a crack. Whoosh! Golden flames formed a layer of substantial golden armor on her body, and the ground had become a scorched black. Sacred Dragon Flame. A golden light shield composed of rhomboid dragon scales appeared in front of her. The ice spear arrived almost the instant the golden light shield formed, and a loud, ear-splitting collision sounded. Bang! Soon, cracks appeared on the golden light shield, and the pupils in the female dragonkin's eyes shrank sharply, and the dragon flame was constantly repairing the cracks on the light shield. The golden dragon flame was like a maggot attached to the bone, constantly burning the ice spear. The ice spear, visible to the naked eye, was constantly dissolving, and its size was constantly shrinking. Well, the temperature of this golden dragon flame must be several thousand degrees. Tisk tisk, interesting. Gulantasta stroked his chin while constantly commenting. After the female dragonkin neutralized this blow, she spread the dragon wings on her back and shook them slightly. Her figure appeared in the air and made eye contact with the ice guardian, erupting with a powerful fighting spirit. The ice guardian spat out a ball of ice breath, aiming directly at the dragonkin in front of him. Ice breath. The white breath, wrapped in absolute low temperature, would definitely weaken the flames on her body if it hit. The dragon wings on the dragonkin's back immediately contracted, her body plummeted in a straight line, and when she was about to fall to the ground, she made a turn, barely dodging this breath. Who? The ice guardian was annoyed by this flying guy. HMPH, face this blow head on. Chapter 100, Fiasco. A look of disdain appeared in the ice guardian's eyes. The magic power of the person before him was far inferior to his own, but his attributes were more inclined towards defense, so his attacks could be neutralized by the dragonkin's high temperature. Ice Prison. This move was a skill that took effect within a certain range, especially targeting those who flew in the sky like the dragonkin. A light blue halo appeared above the female dragonkin's head, and walls of ice materialized around her, firmly holding her within the ice prison, while icicles constantly stabbed out. Damn it! The dragon flames on the dragonkin's body surged out, continuously burning the surrounding ice walls, but this time the melting speed was very slow. The ice guardian coldly snorted. His attack skills were lacking, but his defense and control abilities were absolutely top-notch. HMPH. This was the pride of him, the Guardian King. Dragon flame burst. After realizing that she couldn't break the ice prison in a short time, the female dragonkin chose to release her skill directly from the inside. A huge explosion echoed in the air, and 12 golden orbs exploded one after another, the scalding heatwave surging like the waves of the sea. Bang, bang. The terrifying high temperature and explosive power tore a gap in the ice prison. The dragonkin's figure returned to the sky, but blood was constantly overflowing from the corner of her mouth, vaporizing into wisps of hot air. She had taken 12 explosions head-on inside the ice prison. Although she had fire resistance, she couldn't be immune to physical damage. Her slender lips trembled slightly. This guy's skill attack power isn't high, but this skill is. A trace of fear flashed in the female dragonkin's eyes. The intensity of this skill was too high. The ice guardian didn't expect the dragonkin before him to be so ruthless, actually using this method to break free from his ice prison, but so what? HMPH, this is just a glimpse of Lord's strength. You dare to challenge my lord, how presumptuous. The ice guardian's straightforward words pierced her heart like an ice pick, but she had to admit that it was the truth, but she was the type of person who wanted to be strong. How could she easily admit defeat? How would I know if I don't try? The dragonkin held the golden vortex spear, her figure moving at high speed around the ice guardian. Only for a moment when her figure paused could she be seen clearly. From a distance, it looked like several dragonkin had appeared. Triple thrust. Sparks flew from the ice guardian's body, and his body didn't even move an inch. A series of attacks only knocked off some ice fragments. Granstar couldn't help but smile slightly when he saw this scene. Even the pig-head emperor couldn't break the ice guardian's defense, let alone a dragonkin with only A-grade strength. Suddenly, the dragonkin's attack stopped, and her golden eyes calmly looked at the ice guardian's tall figure, no longer doing useless work. Just when Granstar thought she was going to give up attacking. Granstar's eyes narrowed slightly. He saw flames burning in the dragonkin's eyes, golden flames. Horns slowly grew on her head, and a layer of light golden scales grew on her body, including her entire face. Is this a dragon transformation type of skill? He muttered a few words in doubt. If there's anything I don't understand, I can ask the Overlord and analyze it. Overlord, what is this skill? Granstar's doubts were immediately answered by the Overlord. Analyzing for master. Analysis successful. Lord Granstar, this is an extremely rare skill that can be comprehended by creatures containing dragon bloodlines. It can transform into a partial dragon form for combat. It can increase attack power and magic power several times. Yulin Star stroked his chin, watching the dragonkin's transformation below. I thought it could really transform into a dragon, but it's just partial. The overlord then added, if the other party's holy dragonkin skill can be successfully awakened, and then this skill is used, it will completely transform into a holy dragon. Combat power is estimated to temporarily reach the level of a storm dragon. An expression of surprise appeared on Yulin Star's face. Awakening. Combat power temporarily reaches the level of a storm dragon. But then Yulin Star shook his head again. How easy is it to awaken a skill? Many conditions must be met, first of all, the soul. Moreover, the strength of different skill awakenings will also be different. For example, Clayman, even if he awakens, he will be instantly killed. The Ice Guardian looked at the dragonkin with a faint gaze. He didn't expect her attack skills to stop. Was she thinking of no longer struggling in vain? But some changes had taken place on the dragonkin's body, and her aura gradually became stronger. Finally, a faint roar of a giant dragon echoed in this space, and golden, wide dragon wings slowly unfolded. This form can be called a semi-dragon transformation. She was far from being able to achieve complete dragon transformation. This old lady will not admit defeat. An unyielding roar came from her mouth, like an enraged mother dragon, with a hint of dragon roar. The sound was so loud that ripples appeared on the light curtain of the barrier. Hearing such a rude voice, Yulin Star, who had been paying attention to this side, twitched the corner of his mouth slightly. So valiant. What a waste of such a beautiful face. A burst of brilliant light shone on the dragonkin's body, and she raised her hands above her head. Holy dragon flame burst. A huge golden fireball was condensing, its diameter directly exceeding 100 meters, and a terrifying aura of destruction was flowing. The dragonkin's face turned pale. This one blow would probably directly consume her soaring magic power. Go and destroy. The huge golden fireball, carrying terrifying high temperature, even scorching the surrounding space with sizzling sounds, bombarded the Ice Guardian with incomparable waves of air. Seeing the fireball smash over, the Ice Guardian's face didn't show any expression. At this moment, the Ice Guardian actually made a move that stunned the dragonkin. The Ice Guardian stood upright, his head raised high, standing straight and motionless, without using any defensive skills. Boom! This unparalleled fireball directly exploded on the Ice Guardian's body, the high temperature constantly melting, and the entire space was filled with water vapor for a time. The dragonkin stared blankly at the ice giant who was standing upright, a little dazed in place. He didn't use any defense, and just forcibly withstood my full blow. What does he want to do? But soon, in the misty sky, a pair of ice blue eyes lit up, and a hint of playfulness flashed, particularly human-like. Damage synchronization activated. The female dragonkin's expression suddenly changed drastically. She felt a strange force connecting her to her. PFF'd. A large mouthful of blood spurted out, her delicate body trembled violently, explosions occurred everywhere, blood splattered, and her exquisite facial features twisted together in pain, blood flowing out. The female dragonkin fell down like a kite with a broken string. Huff. Thank you for watching. Continue exploring the fascinating world of Chinese novels with us. Hit that subscribe button on Chinese Novel Audiobook to stay updated with our latest stories, and never miss out on a great listen.